Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Monday, August 4th. We are live. Beautiful Monday morning in the month of August. You know, in New Jersey, it started to get cold. It's kind of weird in New Jersey. You get all the seasons, which is why I like the East Coast, why I like New Jersey. But it's like kind of cold now. Like it was like blazing hot in July. And now I stepped outside. I was walking this morning. It's like not chilly per se, but it's definitely not super hot. And last night, by like 6, 7 p.m., it started getting kind of cold. So we are getting a little bit of the autumn weather starting to come through. And eventually we will be done with summer the next 2 months. And then we will have September through December, which again is my favorite time of the year. But that seems to be coming up relatively soon. Today's going to be a big day. We have the Super Bowl, Palantir earnings. We talked a lot about it last night. It is going to be a very big day for Palantir, the company. This is the first time they've ever been valued at $350 billion going into an earnings. Palantir is up right now in the pre-markets. So we'll be talking about Palantir. By the way, I listened to the market close from Friday when I closed the window. It absolutely sounded like a zipper. 1000% when I closed the window because the dog was barking too much outside. It sounded like a zipper. I could get why you would think I live in a tent. I don't live in a tent, but it definitely sounded like I was zipping up a tent. So that was kind of hilarious. But yeah, it's just how the window is. But it sounded like it was a zipper, so I could understand why people were saying that. We got Palantir earnings today. That's going to be a big one. We have some big news on Elon Musk in the pre-markets. Let's just say they paid that man his money, in the words of the character that said that in Rounders. I don't even know the character's name. I know the movie, but I don't know the character's name. But, they paid him his money. He got a big compensation package today. We'll talk about what that package means for Tesla. Tesla right there up about 2.3% in the pre-markets. You got NVIDIA that's green, the S&P 500 that's green. I mean, the major narrative today outside of Palantir earnings, S&P 500 right there up about 0.5%, is will the non-farm payrolls revisions that happened on Friday, we lost 250,000 jobs, Trump fired the head of the BLS. You had the White House economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, this morning say that you cannot trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics anymore. They're likely going to announce the new head of the BLS, I believe, in the next 3 days. And then we will see who this new person is going to be that is not going to be, quote unquote, rigging the job numbers against the Republicans, as Trump said. And will the market be able to overlook it? Will the market be able to say, you know what? Microsoft was bullish, Amazon was bullish, Google was bullish, Meta was bullish. It's hard to deny that these earnings are pretty fantastic. Tom Lee came out yesterday and he said, hey, it's time to buy the dip. The earnings are amazing. And the only bright side to the non-farm payroll revisions is that we are definitely getting a rate cut, maybe 50 bips, probably not, probably going to be at 25. But if we do get any level of rate cut, then that is going to be supportive for stocks, even if the underlying economy is not the best with the labor market. So this is the narrative going into the month of August. Can the market overlook the jobs data and move forward? Or is the jobs data a trend, and are we really going to have some structural weakness in the labor market? We don't know the answer to that question yet, but we eventually will see over the coming weeks. One other big news on Tom Lee, we'll talk more about this later, but Bitmine, they now have 833,000 Ethereum worth $2.9 billion. They have become the largest Ethereum treasury on the planet. Tom Lee also said that Bitmine is the 42nd most liquid U.S. stock, AKA there's plenty of people buying and selling it, and the options market is only going to make it even more juicy. And as a result, you have Bitmine that is now is the largest Ethereum treasury, and it's up in the pre-market. The question is going to be, does the market actually continue to give it a premium? I believe it's at like 35 right now. And the 2.9 billion, their market cap's 3.5. So that MNAV is relatively insignificant. So you would imagine Bitmine goes higher if the market continues to give it like a 1.5, 1.7x MNAV. And if so, as long as Ethereum goes higher as well, Ethereum did take a little bit of a breather over the weekend along with Bitcoin, then that should be good for Bitmine. So we got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a big day for Palantir. I love that you guys are confused about this shirt. It's just the shirt, bro. There's a lot of stripes on the shirt. That's it. It is. Oh, by the way, I got to show you guys my freaking sleep score. Dude, I killed it last night. I got freaking 7 hours and 41 minutes of sleep. Look at that, bro. Look at that. 7 hours and 41 minutes. 87 sleep score. I have not had an 87 sleep. I've not had 7 hours, I feel like, in like a month. So I don't know what it was. I did have a wild dream last night, though. I had a wild dream. I'm not even going to talk about the dream, but it was a wild. I don't even want to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but it was a wild dream. I think that's what kept me. You know, when you have a dream that's so good, you like want to stay in the dream and you're not ready to wake up. I think that's what I had last night. So maybe more dreams is what's necessary for me to keep sleeping. All right, Tesla, Elon Musk. Let's get an update on this. It looks like that man is getting paid.
Twice, despite shareholders voting twice in favor of that deal. Well, the board has approved a new deal, a bit of a what they're describing as a make good deal. They've approved a plan to pay him 96 million shares temporarily as this case and their appeal continues. Now, 96 million shares is the equivalent of about $30 billion. This would be a $30 billion make good. It represents about 3% of the entire company's shares as part of the original transaction or compensation deal that was agreed upon back in 2018. He would have received, given the milestones that he surpassed, the equivalent of close to $90 billion or 9% of the company. And you'll recall that we talked about how at the time the package seemed almost impossible to achieve. He did achieve it. The shareholders voted on it twice, but a judge has disagreed with that. This plan would be, quote unquote, prospective rather than retrospective. You're not effectively allowed to pay for previous work. As part of this deal, he would be paid and those shares would vest over a 2-year term. As part of that, he would not be allowed to sell the shares, however, for another 5 years. So even though he'd be paid those shares today, he can't sell those shares for the next 5 years. He can pledge those shares so that he can effectively take out loans to pay for the taxes on the vesting of those shares. So it actually mirrors very similarly the way the original 2018 plan was set up. And if you'll remember, he has not been paid a dollar since the 2017 plan effectively ended. I remember talking to both of you that morning in Davos when I ultimately broke that story, that to me, this was the most shareholder friendly plan that exists. You either get paid or you don't, and it's a true pay for performance. They are saying.
And Elon executed. I mean, he had to get the company to some ridiculous market cap. I'm forgetting the exact details of it. Some of you guys might know in the chat, but Tesla was 50 billion at the time. I think he had to get it to like 400 billion or something, which in like a couple of years, and he did it. So he deserves to get paid. Shareholders voted twice to give that man his money, and the Delaware judge said no. So it seems like this is a way to make up for that. Elon has not publicly commented on it yet. Tesla did post a letter about it on Twitter saying, like, this is what we should do for rewarding our CEO. It's the most ethical thing to do. And it seems like this is kind of the way they're trying to get Elon to essentially get paid.
And though this is just a down payment, and if in fact the court were to approve the appeal, meaning if they were to win on appeal on the original deal, which is still in flux, this deal would go away. So effectively, there would not be a double dip in terms of how the transaction would take place. And I would also just point you to a sentence that I do think is interesting, because clearly they're starting to think not just about paying him a third, which is this $30 billion deal, but they're trying to think about what the future holds in terms of what comes next. And there's an allusion to the fact that they are reading everybody's tweets and X's. These are shareholder tweets and X's, and how they're thinking about all of these things, and also what they say is important to Elon in terms of trying to focus his energies. I think there's going to be a lot of people reading that sentence saying, well, what is it that they can do to align? They're saying that they want to keep Elon focused, and it's a first step towards achieving that goal. You might say, well, what's the next step? And they say that they are working on next steps to address that issue.
So it seems like this is Tesla's way of officially saying, all right, it's been way too long since Elon hasn't gotten paid, and now he's going to get paid. My thoughts on this, obviously, it's a good thing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you believe in capitalism, you believe in meritocracy, no matter what you... Oh, Tom Lee's live on CBC. Let me pull it up. No matter what you think about Elon's politics, he did get the stock to go up. That is the job of a CEO, to get shareholder returns. He got shareholder returns, and as a result, I think that warrants Elon getting paid. And it looks like this is the first step for Tesla to begin that process. Okay, here we go. Here's Tom Lee on CNBC talking about Bitmine.
Bitmine, we mentioned that at the top, is going to be, in your view, the micro strategy or strategy of Ethereum or Ether.
Yes, that's right. Just a month ago, I was on the show to announce I was becoming chairman. And at the time, the stock was $4.50, and we announced a $250 million investment led by Founders Fund and Mosaics and others. But today, we announced that we reached almost $3 billion worth of ETH. And
The largest ETH holder, then.
Yeah, the largest ETH treasury in the world and the third largest crypto treasury in the world. And we also announced that Bill Miller III made a major investment last week into Bitmine. So that he joins Kathy Woods in investing in our company in the past couple of weeks.
That's the Bill Miller from Legg Mason we all know.
Yes,
right?
that's right. The Bill Miller that we all know.
Yep.
Yes.
He was super early.
Yeah.
On crypto, too.
No, that's what I was going. I was saying super. He was like, right? What was he getting Bitcoin at? 2012, 13?
Yeah, he has some of the lowest cost Bitcoin out there.
What's your symbol? What is Bitmine?
It's ticker BMNR. And the stock now is around 32. So in the past, $4.50, yeah.
Wow. All right, good. Come back. You didn't come on early. I think I like it, maybe next time you come on right at 7:30 in the middle.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Early, late. Okay, good. Tom, thank you.
I like setting the program up with
I do too.
Okay, I think we missed a couple minutes before he went live where he was maybe talking about the markets. We'll see if we can get some of that footage later. But yeah, again, the big news on Tom Lee is that they bought a ton of Ethereum and now they have 833,000 ETH on the balance sheet. Worth 2.9 billion. Again, market cap's only worth 3.5, so you're not really getting a meaningful MNAV like they've gotten in the past. I expect that to eventually expand, but it might need Ethereum to run in order to get some of that expansion as well. Finishing up on Tesla, again, at the end of the day, I think it's a good strategy for them to begin paying Elon. They put out this long letter on X talking about why he needs to get paid. As you know, Elon has not received meaningful compensation for 8 years since the 2012 CEO Performance Award. Despite overwhelming support from you guys in 2024, our legal efforts continue in Delaware courts to reinstate the 2018 CEO Performance Award. And that's why they ended up creating the compensation award that we are seeing today. Now, the two caveats on this for those that missed it is the shares vest after 2 years, which means they cannot be sold or transferred for 5 years. So Elon's going to be holding on to a lot of this money. And then he has to pay $23.34 a share, which is the strike price of his 2018 compensation plan, which is, a pretty good price given the stock is at 300. And I do think, if Elon's getting 97 million shares, you are a bit more motivated to get the stock to go up. You have a little bit of pep in your step on earnings to see, to see the share price go higher. Whereas if you have no shares and you're working literally with the assumption that one day you might get shares, it's not that exciting, right? So, a lot of people think, including myself, Tesla can become a multi-trillion-dollar company, not just a $1 trillion. I mean, it's holding $1 trillion with these earnings. What could it do if the earnings are actually positive and Tesla's a growing company once again? Which I think in about 2 years we're going to see that earnings inflection. I think the stock will be higher than 300, especially given its role in the AI revolution. So now that Elon's paid, we have a little bit better of a chance of him being motivated for that as well. Lyft right here, up 2.6%. Lyft has partnered with Baidu in China to release autonomous vehicles throughout the region. So they're going to be deploying autonomous rides across Europe. Actually, well, they're partnering with Baidu, which is a Chinese company, but they're deploying autonomous vehicles in Europe. And it seems like the autonomous future continues to grow closer. Obviously, Tesla, Waymo, Lyft. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people, Baidu, that are in this race, BYD, that are trying to get this done. Elon right now is trying to really make it happen inside of the United States. Nevada's on the way. California's on the way. Austin's geofence has increased even further. So slowly by slowly, this autonomous revolution is going to be happening. And it's going to be very exciting to see how it ends up playing out over the long term. So the big piece of news today were, again, Ethereum, Tom Lee buying 833,000, and then Mr. Elon Musk getting $30 billion of restricted stock awards today, which hopefully should be a much better motivator for him over the long term. Palantir. We got Palantir earnings today. I want to play a small clip of Alex Karp in the last shareholder call for Q1 to kind of set the stage for what I expect on Palantir. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I spent almost like 40 minutes about it last night. So if you go to the Sunday Future Show, click on the Palantir section, you can hear me talk for 40 minutes about my thoughts on Palantir. But I think this is the type of energy we're going to see today on the Q2 2025 call.
We're running this business for you, with you as owners, which means, it's like there's going to be maybe lumpiness, but we predict we're going to do very, very well. Basically, where you have pressure testing, you can assume AIP, AI Foundry, Ontology, Apollo, and the Palantir culture itself. I mean, we are a warrior culture. Like, that's why our whole culture is built around putting the exact right team and the exact right product at the final mile. And so where you have environments that are crucial and under pressure, you can expect, and where meritocracy happens, it's like, we need meritocracy. How do you get meritocracy? Well, there's lots of ways to get meritocracy. One way is because you're scared. And then you buy the best product, you install the best product, and then the part that's or correlated different than people think is you also get the best ethics, the best execution, and that, of course, and then you can ask a simple question. Why is this a moat? Okay, well, I can tell you why it's a moat, because heretofore, no one has gotten into these environments at scale under any circumstance. And if they did get in, they got in with services. So now we have a single purposed, highly formed stack of software that is exactly right for this moment, with a culture that's exactly right to implement it, which a culture that can teach people how to do this, that is now charismatic for some, it's anti-charismatic for others. And that de facto, it's the compounding rate of return on that stack. And to Shyam's opinion, the opinionation we have about how to do this, it essentially allows you to express your tribal knowledge of your enterprise in a way you could never do it before, on the terms of your enterprise, with unit economics that are heretofore impossible to do. And that's what's happening in this country, and really in 90% of our market, which explains like the 49% growth and the rule of 83, despite what would be viewed on the outside as large ineptitudes in sales and go to market and how do we interact with people, and our opinionation, both on the outside, on the inside, and with the frontline customer, which is like, we're not agnostic to using our software as shelfware. We are not in the shelfware business, which is another reason why pressure in the government really helps us. We've never done shelfware. We don't do shelfware. We don't think our personality can afford shelfware.
Essentially, Karp is saying, hey, where you need pressure, where you need opportunities that cannot break, where you need software that cannot break for opportunities that necessitate urgency, that's where Palantir shines. Bitmine right here is up about 5.3% in the pre-markets as well. And the argument about a moat, when a lot of people say, what is Palantir's moat, outside of the obviously technological moat in regards to their software, one of their biggest moats is the culture and the ability to shine and to operate. And I think we have multiple deals to showcase that, whether it's NATO, the DoD, et cetera, on Palantir software being pressure-oriented in high-stakes environments and winning in those high-stakes environments. And that, quite frankly, is why I think the market gives it the multiple. My overall thoughts on Palantir going into earnings is I'm the most stoic I have ever been going into earnings. Could the stock go down because it's trading at an aggressive multiple? Absolutely. I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. Robinhood did the same thing. Crushed earnings, stock went down. Why? Because it just went up a lot in the past couple months. Same thing happened to Palantir. Could it go up if they crush earnings because the market continues to expand the multiple based on the runway they see for Palantir to capture a massive opportunity in the next decade when it comes to AI? Yeah, I think it could. And to get specific on the numbers, Palantir, I believe, will put up 40% revenue growth. If they don't beat the guidance, they will put up 38% revenue growth. I think they will beat by 2%. They tend to beat by 5 to 7%. So realistically, I think they're going to put up like 42 to 43% growth. If they end up putting up like 50% or $1 billion in revenue, which would be 70 million above their guidance, I'm not expecting that, but that would be massive. I think the market would be like, holy crap, they really are deciding to take the entire market. But if they put up close to 950, 960 million, that's 40 to 42% growth. I think that would be phenomenal. I don't know if that's enough to get the stock to go higher, given the stock has already gone up so much going into the print, but maybe it is, maybe it's not. My question is, will the company perform more than anything outside of the stock? The stock has performed for the past 3-4 years, right? If you bought it at 152, yeah, it's not performed. But if you bought it at 6, 7, 20, 30, 40, 50, even at $100, it's performed. And so shareholder returns is not like the number one thing I care about here, because I know the stock's expensive and I know the stock's gone up a lot. I care about, is the company matching to the reality of what we all think it can become? And we're going to see that tonight in the growth numbers. And if they are, then I think we are going to get a pretty good earnings from Palantir. And it will be exciting to see them take the next step on their journey. All right, Trump just tweeted. Here we go. Here we go. This is what he said. Last week's jobs report was rigged, just like the numbers prior to the presidential election were rigged. That's why in both cases there was a massive record-setting revision in favor of the radical left Democrats. Those big adjustments were made to cover up and level out the fake political numbers that were concocted in order to make a great Republican success looks less stellar. I will pick an exceptional replacement. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, look, here's the thing. Let's transition to Trump and some of these job numbers. Here's my issue with him replacing the head of the BLS. Actually, I really don't care that he's replacing the head of the BLS. That's not that big of a deal. The bigger deal is, what if he replaces the head of the BLS and the job numbers still suck? I mean, can you guys imagine how awkward it's going to be if we get a jobs number going into September and it's like 20,000 jobs added per month, which is kind of the average over the past couple of months after the revision, or I think like 40,000 is the average. And that's not anywhere near, the 150, 200,000 jobs that Trump has been saying he'll be able to, get a month. I mean, whatever Republican, quote unquote, BLS commissioner that you get is not going to be able to change the underlying reality of jobs that are either getting added or not getting added. And if they are, then they're cooking the books, which, I mean, I don't think we want to see them cook the books. We didn't want to see them cook the books with Biden. I don't think anyone wants to see them cook the books with Trump. So I don't know exactly if Trump is right 1,000% that it was rigged and we did add hundreds of thousands of jobs and now we took them away and it's all being a conspiracy to make Trump look bad. Okay, I guess we'll see if that ends up playing out or not. But if he's wrong about that, which, maybe he might be wrong, then the jobs report, if it ends up being bearish over the next couple months, it's not going to be because of the BLS commissioner, which I agree with Trump. We need to have a new methodology to calculate jobs because I don't know how we revised by 250,000. Like, it feels political. It feels conspiratorial. So I can give everyone the benefit of the doubt, including myself, of feeling, hey, this is weird. This is iffy. Is it rigged? What's going on? But if it doesn't change just because we have a new commissioner, I don't exactly know how it's going to play out. Here's NEC Director Kevin Hassett talking about the jobs data and what's going on with the way that we're calculating these jobs every single month.
Basic question. The president said on Friday that he believed that these numbers were rigged, that they were politically motivated. Do you believe that to be true?
As an economist, I like to go for what I can prove, and what I can prove is that the data have become very unreliable. As you know, I've been on this show on Squawk Box before I was here in the White House pretty much every jobs day for the last 20, 25 years, right? We would come up to New York and I'd be on set and we'd talk about the jobs numbers. And when I looked at the revisions that came out last week, I thought they had to be a typo or something. You probably thought so too. And, it's something that has been a work in progress for us at OMB and CEA here in the White House to try to understand why the data have become so unreliable. There's some part of the story about response rates and so on, but I think it's really important now that we got a fresh set of eyes over there to try to modernize the labor data, because it has to be transparent, it has to be reliable, it has to be something the market can make big bets on. And right now it's not. When the revisions are bigger than the number itself, then you got troubles.
Kevin, here's the question though, and I think we can agree that there could be a modernization effort, an effort to improve the way the numbers are collected so you aren't getting into this revision scenario. Perhaps the model itself needs to be rethought. Sure. I think there's probably a wide agreement on that. However, Janet Yellen said over the weekend that this is what happens in a banana republic when it's considered to be political to remove somebody like that. And as I mentioned, the comment, at least initially, was that this was a rigged effort, that these numbers were being politically manipulated. And so my question to you is, to the extent you want these numbers to have credibility and you want this department to have credibility, who do you think would be the right kind of person that would be able to reestablish whatever credibility you think was lost on Friday, recognizing that the credibility, if you will, of that group may not be as high as you'd want it to be on the sort of metrics of the numbers and your views that the numbers are not as good as they should be, but not that they're being politically manipulated?
Right. Well, first of all, they could be politically manipulated because they're so untransparent. There's a black box system out there making the jobs numbers that needs to be improved. Indeed, the UK saw a similar circumstance like this a few years ago, and they actually shut down the data agency for a month or so until they got their ducks in a row. The fact is that we had...
He is right about that. We need a new methodology. We absolutely need a new methodology. And it opens up Pandora's box to imagining what is going on with these job numbers when we see these types of revisions. Remember, when Biden was president, we had an 818,000 job revision. So we need an entire shakeup of the BLS. The question is, what's the best way to go about that?
These blockbuster numbers for Joe Biden last year that suddenly we lost about 1 million of them after he dropped out of the election. The fact is that you know, I'm an economist. I'm not a politician. But when politicians look at numbers that make them wonder, then that suggests that there needs to be more transparency. So, for example, if I'm running the BLS and I have the biggest revision, really think about it, the biggest revision outside of COVID in 50 years, then it's incumbent on me to explain why in a very transparent way, to show how the numbers add up, to show exactly where the revision came from and what you're doing to address it so it doesn't happen again. If you don't do that, then you create a circumstance where politicians are going to wonder. And for goodness sakes, we know that hopefully not much in the data area, but all over the US government, there have been people who have been resisting Trump everywhere they can. And so to make sure that that's not going to happen in the data agencies, to make sure that the data are as transparent and as reliable as possible, we're going to get highly qualified people in there that have a fresh start and a fresh set of eyes on the problem.
So that's what you got from the White House economic advisor in terms of what's going on with the jobs data. Here is that clip from Tom Lee speaking more about what he thinks the Fed should be doing.
Since it's a dual mandate, that maybe the Fed should have been able to think that there was more risk to a slowdown than to inflation. Do you think they missed that a little bit and they're fighting? I don't know, but Trump said you got to cut, so they couldn't. Maybe they had to err that way just for political reasons.
Yeah, I think the Fed needs to demonstrate independence, but you're right. I think when they look at their dual mandate, they're probably drifting further from the employment metric now, because the unemployment rate, if you use the existing participation rate before this report, it's almost 5% now. So the Fed now has to be considering the risk of jobs market actually going into a cycle of weakening.
Right, but you have also been, I guess dovish is the word, on inflation. You have not thought that there was going to be necessarily a big impact from the tariff regime.
That's right. And I think the biggest takeaway is, first of all, if you look at the latest inflation report, the goods component that are tariff driven, it's been only mild. But also, if you use the same inflation measure Europe uses, which is inflation X housing, we're actually under 2%. The Fed, if they were the ECB, would be cutting right now.
That's interesting. So by the end of the year, or what target are you using now and what time frame?
I think we're going to rally pretty strongly in August. So I think we can get back to 65 or get to 65, 6,600.
That's non-consensus. The majority of people have said August will be a sleeper. Historically, August is a sleeper. The fact that Tom Lee's saying 65, 66 in August, that is him going against the grain. And if he's right about that, then August would be an incredible month.
All-time highs in the next couple of weeks.
And then 7,000 in the next 12 months, above that?
Yeah, probably well above that.
Well above that.
Yeah.
Bitmine, we mentioned that.
Okay, so we watched the Bitmine clip already. Wow, dude. Tom Lee saying 65 hundo in August. Rocket Mortgage, by the way, is up about 4%. Citron Research, the company that was short GameStop and almost went out of business because of their short on GameStop, which if they had held their short, they would have made so much money, but in January, they got freaked out in 2021. They're bullish Rocket Mortgage, even though we misconstrue both of those stocks all the time. RKT, they say a meme stock, no way. Rocket is building the Amazon of mortgages. Retail didn't change hype. They saw the obvious. Rocket plus Mr. Cooper is a housing juggernaut, a transformative, synergy-rich merger between two technology leaders in a cost inflationary industry. This isn't a meme. This is what a better mousetrap looks like. So you got RKT going green, 4% on the endorsement by Citron. Obviously, if rates come down, which now it is inevitable, rates are going to be coming down based on that jobs data. The interest rate sensitive plays, particularly in the housing market, even an open door, for example, could benefit from that. massively. By the way, it is kind of funny that Trump is so upset about the job numbers, because this is the only reason why the Fed future probabilities are now pricing in a basically 90% chance of a rate cut in September. Before these job numbers were at 87.5, it was 30% on Thursday. Then Friday job numbers came out and now it's 90%. I mean, ironically, if you did not have those job revisions, it would be really up in the air on if we would get a rate cut. And, not all rate cuts are good, because obviously if the economy is weak, then the rate cut is like a response to a weakening economy, which is not necessarily good for earnings. But this market is priced for a minimum, I would say, of 2 cuts this year. And it was up in the air based on that FOMC that we got last Wednesday, where JPAL was basically saying for 45 minutes, the labor market is strong and inflation sticky. Therefore, we don't see the need to cut. Well, now the labor market's not that strong. And so, yes, this theory, this is a theory actually Steve was talking about. What if the unemployment numbers were rigged just to get rates down, and then we can get the actual numbers after the cut? Steve called me on Saturday. He was like, what if they rigged the unemployment numbers just to be able to pressure JPAL to give us the cut? I don't know, but at the end of the day, I don't think Trump would be this upset about the labor market numbers if he purposely wanted them to be bad. But maybe it was all an act, because now he wanted them to be bad to get JPAL to cut, but he needs to prove that he's a president that cares about jobs. Therefore, he's firing the person who rigged the numbers against him. But technically, he's happy that they were rigged so that you could get the rate. Like, it's a lot of stuff going into that theory on if that's how they did it. But no one knows, right, what exactly is going to be how it plays out. The one thing we do know is that we are getting that rate cut, because there is no way in hell JPAL can look at those job revisions and say, oh, the labor market's fine. And actually, I think that's why the S&P is recovering a little bit. We lost 1.6% on Friday. Right now, we're at 0.6%. So, we'll see when the market opens in 12 minutes how this plays out. But it's hard to imagine the market not being excited for a rate cut, as long as the jobs issue is not structurally endemic of a broader problem in the labor market. And the next few months of data will have a better understanding of how that ends up playing out. So that's what we got with the jobs data. Eric, thanks for the $10 super chat. Amid, thanks for all you do. You rock. Eric, thanks for being here. Appreciate you being here. Laszlo, thank you for becoming a channel member. And James Sheldon, thank you for becoming a channel member as well. Appreciate everyone being here this morning. All right, so on top of the other big pieces of news we have today, Hims is going to put up some earnings as well. Honestly, I have no idea what to expect. This stock got hit with the Novo stuff, and then it ended up getting some momentum after the Novo stuff ended. Novo ended up, going down 30%. Hims is starting to go green. In terms of the street expectations, so today the street wants $551 million in revenue and 21 cents of an EPS beat. Hims has had basically a 20% run over the past, call it a week and a half, going into earnings from 46 to 64. So I don't know. I mean, I think they can put up some really good numbers, but because it's up so much, maybe the street takes it down, or maybe if they really smash expectations, this one breaks the all-time highs of 72. But that's another one we'll be looking at later throughout the day, and we'll see kind of how that one plays out. Now, outside of those earnings, tomorrow we've got AMD, SMCI. AMD is a big one. I will be listening to the call after the bell. So everyone who cares about AMD, you'll be able to listen to the call on the channel. AMD right there up about 2.1%. And then throughout the week, you still have a ton of earnings. You have IONQ, you have ELF, you have Duolingo, DraftKings, Upstart, DoorDash, Lyft, SoundHound, Rocket Lab on Thursday. That's a big one. Trade Desk, Block, Pinterest, Twilio, Monster, Instacart, Lilly, Celsius, Uber, Shop, Disney, McDonald's, Oscar, Unity, Fubo. You got a lot of companies this week. 40% of the S&P 500, even if it's not as deep as last week in terms of the big tech companies, still a ton of names. And so this week obviously is going to be very important to kind of see what the results deliver. Here is Dan Ives this morning on his thoughts on Palantir going into the print after the bell.
Revolution, Palantir is one of the leaders. And I think that's why they're the Messi of AI. And when it comes to the use cases on the enterprise, they're exploding. Look, I think next 2 to 3 years, this is $1 trillion market cap.
If it's the Lionel Messi of this particular AI boom, then what the expectations are have to be really high. How much does it have to beat by, and on what metrics for that stock to keep continuing on the trajectory that it's on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, commercial growth called 45, 50%. But when I'm looking over the next, call it 6, 12 months, I think Street's underestimating numbers 15, 20%. I mean, this is just in the beginning of this AI revolution. And when you look at who's leading it, of course, it's Godfather of AI, Jensen, NVIDIA, Microsoft. Look at all the hyperscalers. The use cases are led by Palantir. They're basically playing chess, and everyone else is playing checkers. And that's why I think that's what's going to show up tonight.
Okay, if that's going to show up tonight, this is also a situation where you can't dispute the fact, Dan, that many of these types of names, Palantir included, have seen a massive surge in terms of their market values over the course of the last year, and especially over the last 2 years, given the AI boom. It's leading some folks to question whether or not valuations are justified at these levels. Some are even using the word bubble, likening it to back in the dot-com boom. Is that the case here?
I mean, I think it can be further from the truth, because there's some of that covered tech stocks in the late 90s, in the bubble. This is dramatically different because it's a revolution. It's trillions of dollars that's going to be spent over the next few years. And that's why it's a fourth industrial revolution. When you look at Palantir, look, if you look at just the valuation over the next year, you missed every transformational tech stock the last 20 years. And I believe Palantir is one of the core leaders of not just next year, of next 3, 5 years. I think Karp and the team are playing a different game. And I think it all comes down to use cases on the enterprise. And I've said it's only 10 p.m. in this AI party that goes to 4 a.m. It was 9 p.m. a year ago.
And one of the most important things that Dan is talking about there when it comes to this party not stopping, take a look at this chart, folks. I mean, again, when people say it's a bubble and it's all hodgepodge and it's all going to collapse and pop and fall apart, let's read some quotes on CapEx by the big tech companies. Apple CFO, you are going to see our CapEx grow. It is not going to be exponential growth, but it is going to grow substantially. Google CFO, we now expect to invest $85 billion of CapEx in 2025, up from $75 billion. Amazon CFO, the depreciation expense is a result of our growing investments in capital expenditures in AWS. Meta CFO, we currently expect another year of similarly significant, why can't I say the word? Similarly. See, there you go. There's every day we find a word that trips me up. Similarly, significant CapEx dollar growth in 2026 as we continue aggressively pursuing opportunities to bring additional capacity online. Microsoft CEO, we will continue to invest against the expansive opportunity ahead of both capital expenditures and operating expenses. These companies are spending so much money. It's hard to have a bubble when you have this much money being spent, and you're starting to see the ROI. Microsoft, 39% Azure growth, $75 billion run rate. It's the first time they actually disclosed Azure revenues because they feel so confident to show the market that they're not slowing down. And as a result of that, it is very exciting to see the momentum. And then Arnie right here, he had this great post this morning of all the different deals Palantir had in the past 90 days. I'll link it in the chat, but there's a lot of deals. And you got a $100 million 5-year partnership, $218 million Space Systems Command deal, $800 million 4-year contract with the Army and Maven. And then you just have more and more partnerships with Ecuador, SAP, XAI, etc. You got a lot of stuff here. So for me, a bubble is defined by a company that is artificially valued and there is nothing to that valuation. And you can say Palantir is valued in a very aggressive way. I will give you that. But to say there's nothing to the valuation, AKA it's just full of nonsense, it's hard when you see all the deals they're getting and the momentum that they're having, along with all the money that's being spent in the very industry, AKA AI, that Palantir is positioning themselves in via CapEx. Remember, all this CapEx needs an ROI. And if the goal of the CapEx is to build out data centers and infrastructure so that the AI, which essentially is the software, can present returns using the large language models, well, what is Palantir? Their entire ethos is implementing AI systems via their software foundry and AIP to deliver value to an enterprise or to a government. And that market seems just gigantic, given Palantir only has less than 800 customers. And I think that market can continue to grow. So that's what we got for Palantir, and we will kind of see what the results look like as we get into the end of the day. All right, we got 4 minutes until the market closes. Let's do a poll right here in the chat and see what you guys are thinking. S&P green or red today? Green or red today? I mean, do we recover from that August 1st 1.5% decline? Or is it kind of a short-lived rally. I mean, we are up 0.5% right here in the pre-markets. I wonder if this gets faded as soon as the market opens, or if this one actually has some legs behind it and you get some people to buy the dip. Did I say market closes? Oh, I meant to say open, dude. I meant to say open. Similarly, market closes. We are already starting with the words today. Dude, how do you say that word? Similarly. Similarly. Why is that word so hard? It's a weird word, bro. Similarly. Mick gets more sleep than can, but yeah, dude. I guess I had 8 hours of sleep today, and therefore now I can't function. Dude, I had a good dream, bro. I had a great dream. I'm not going to talk about the dream, but it was a good dream. That dream kept me sleeping. That dream kept me in my sleep. I woke up refreshed. I was like, wow, it is a great day to wake up and walk the face of the earth again. It was a good dream. All right, so 3 minutes. 75% of you say green. Wow. Everyone woke up and was bullish. Oh, by the way, Trump acknowledged Sydney Sweeney, since you guys think I dreamt about her, which I didn't. They told Trump that she's a registered Republican, which apparently it was leaked that in the state of Florida, she is a registered Republican. And yeah, he was pretty happy to hear that.
Not speaking that she was a registered Republican. Any thoughts on that?
That who was?
Sydney Sweeney. She's like a very hot actress right now.
She's a registered Republican?
Yes.
Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
So there you go. You had a Trump Sydney Sweeney moment yesterday as well. All right, we got 2 minutes. Palantir's up 2.7, Rocket Mortgage up 2.6, HIMS up 1%, AMD's up 1.7, S&P up 0.5%. Again, Tesla, if you're just joining, Elon Musk got paid 96 million shares, about $30 billion as a new compensation package. So that is what's getting Tesla some momentum right here. Robinhood up 1.34%. I did a video on Grab on X for those that want some more of a deep dive on Grab. Grab right here up about 2% in the pre-markets. TLDR on the video, it's about 30 minutes, but essentially I see growth in every area of the business. They're sacrificing some of the margin to get that growth based on every analyst report I read, which now the average price target on Grab is about $6.20. Every analyst is on board. I mean, I literally did not read a single analyst that disagreed with the sacrifice margins for market share approach, because all of them know what happens to a tech company when you get market share and you sacrifice margin. You get margin and you get pricing power once you have the market share. We've seen this happen so many times, Amazon being the best example. So all the analysts are on board. The price targets are well above the current price right now. It's just a question of the market catching up to it. And I think over time that that will take place. S&P 500 right here up about 0.64%. All right, folks, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Monday morning, August 4th. We are all here across the world together to once again open the markets. Ladies and gentlemen, the stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Wow, S&P, she's going for 1%, 0.7 on the S&P. We are green across the board. AMD up 2%, Grab up 1.7, HIMS up 3%, Rocket Mortgage up 2, Palantir, look at that. She's trying to go for 160. She is trying to go for 160, up about 3.2% right here. Bitmine up 3.8%. Again, they bought a lot of Ethereum this morning, so now they are the largest Ethereum treasury on the planet. Robinhood right there, 99.95. PayPal, 68.84. Tesla, 306. That was a little bit red from the pre-markets, but still green overall. You got Lyft right here up 3% on their partnership with Baidu in Europe. Again, S&P at 626. Amazon's green. Amazon took a nasty 8% haircut last week after earnings. UNH, a little bit of green on UNH, 238. Coinbase, that's up 0.5%. Google back at 190. Novo Nordisk, that's up 1.4. Nvidia up 1%. Figma's down 7%. Not that surprising because Figma got up aggressively. But Figma taking a little bit of a breather, which I think is okay. Apple is green, up 1.3. ARM is green. A lot of the names that took a beating last week, like an Apple or an ARM or an Amazon, are green this morning, which is nice. Oracle right here, 246. Palo Alto, 173. American Eagle, wow. Looks like the Trump endorsement. American Eagle, that's up 5%. as we get into it. Weeble's up 1.5. Nebius is up 2.9. Astera Labs is up 4.6. Marvell, they had a partnership last week with Microsoft and a company in South Korea. That got them up 10%. And then they fell about 5% on Friday. They're up about 0.5% right now. Micron's up 1%. Dell is up 1.27. Grabs at 486. Apple 205. AMD 174. Palantir 160.55. 160.55. I don't know why Robinhood's down. That is a little weird. I mean, I guess you could say because Bitcoin and Ethereum got hit over the weekend. But then again, is Coinbase down right now? Coinbase is red. Yeah, that's a Bitcoin thing. That's a crypto thing. So Coinbase going red with Robinhood. I would not be surprised to see them reverse. But Bitcoin and Ethereum did take a dip over the weekend, and that's probably why they are red. Palantir 160, 3.84. You do have some buyers coming in before earnings. Microsoft, green, up 2%. Where's Meta? Meta was at 780 last week. Meta's at 763. Meta was also at 700 on Tuesday last week. So Meta has been re-rated. Every price target I've read from the street has basically propped it up to 900 to 1,000. And Microsoft is basically 575 to 650. So all of the analysts have taken their expectations further for these companies based on these earnings. MicroStrategy, that one is up a little bit, basically flat, 367. Big Bear AI, that one I believe is green. We are green. Wow, Big Bear, 5%. It got nuked on Friday, but it's green right now. SoundHound is also up about 1%. Joby had a partnership with L3 Harris. I did not see that partnership today. Wow, dude, this stock has been on a tear. Joby's up 13%. They've had like the Toyota partnership. They had new funding. They had a test flight. Now you're telling me they have an L3 Harris partnership. I mean, when it comes to eVTOLs, Joby's really doing their thing. Archer right here is also up 1.2% as well, but Joby has had a pretty nice run. UNH is at 239. That's up about 0.5%. Not too crazy. Where is SoFi? Wow. So it's not just Hoodie or Coinbase. They're taking all the financial technology companies down. Is PayPal green? PayPal slightly green. So it's kind of SoFi, Hoodie, and Coinbase that are getting hit. What about Affirm? Affirm is also green. I guess it's a SoFi, Hood, Coinbase thing today. Coinbase right there, down about 0.33%. Spotify got hit 10% last week. Spotify is up 7% this morning. Some of these names, bro, the market's not letting them fall. The market's not letting them fall as aggressively as you would expect them to fall. Palantir right here, 159.64. Palantir did hit 160.91, which was a new all-time high. We got there for a second, did not hit 161. We hit 161 in the pre-markets a week ago, but we're at 160.91 right now, 159.50. So obviously people are buying it going into earnings. Meta right here, 762. Microsoft 530. Coinbase still down. S&P 0.79. Looks like S&P wants to get 1%. Spotify raised prices today. Okay, I will check on that. If that is true, then that explains why Spotify is green right here. I mean, if they're raising prices. Now, that it means they think they have pricing power, which is a good thing. But it also means maybe their advertising business is not doing that well, which is why they need to get more from their subscribers. Yeah, Spotify is increasing prices in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Latin America, Asia Pacific, and Europe. It's going to go up by $1, or by €1, I should say. So about €1 is where you're seeing Spotify increase their prices, and that's why the stock is up. Figma is getting hit. Again, that one's down. How much is that down? 12%. Figma is, down about 12%. 107 on Figma. ABCL, what is happening with that one? I have no idea, but it is definitely down from that 580 level that it hit last month, 582 on around July 21st. Again, ABCL is either a 100 bagger or it goes to zero. So this one, if you buy it, you really just have to hold it for the long term and hope their drug discovery works out. But yeah, it is really rooted in the trials and the platform that they have to be able to get that approach to then see shareholder returns. Because at the end of the day, it still is in that biotech world. UNH right here now goes red. SoFi goes red. Apple's green. Grab's green. S&P, wow, 0.88, 627. Maybe we see Apple, or not Apple, the S&P get to 1% green on the day. ASML, that's a little green, up 1%, still below 700. Carvana, they had a great earnings, but they're down. eBay, they had a great earnings as well. They're holding 91. They were at 77 before earnings, 15% day, one of the best days they had in the past 15 years. PayPal right here, 67.87. Big Bear up almost 7%. Meta's up almost 2%. Grab's trying to get up 2%. S&P 0.9. S&P 0.9. So Open Door has earnings tomorrow. That's why Open Door is running 7%. It was up like 15% in the pre-markets. I don't know what to expect from earnings. I have no idea. But if they deliver, maybe the street re-rates it. If they don't, then I don't know. We're going to see what happens. But open door tomorrow will be important. Palantir, are we back to 160? We are very close to 160, but not there yet. USAR is up on Trump's comments on the rare earth minerals. Trade Secretary Jamerson Greer said that we are getting very close to a meaningful deal with China. Again, it might take another month, in my opinion, but they probably will get a 90-day delay going into August 12th, because that's when the tariffs go into effect. So they'll probably delay it 90 days so that the tariffs don't go into effect, and then they'll keep negotiating. But rare earth minerals for AI chips, aka NVIDIA and AMD GPUs, is really the leverage that the United States has against China. Joby, 17%. My goodness. My goodness. Berkshire Hathaway down 3%. Honestly, Berkshire Hathaway earnings were not that good. They came out on Saturday morning. I mean, if you're at all a growth investor, there's nothing to be excited about with Berkshire. And then if you're just kind of an investor that wants to buy and hold, get some dividends, fixed income, there's also nothing to be that excited about Berkshire. I mean, they have less cash on hand. Instead of 347 billion, they have 344 billion. So they spent 3 billion on whatever. They have less treasuries by about like 10 billion. I mean, they're really not actively deploying capital in a meaningful way in this market. And that's probably because they think this market is too expensive. But the market continues to go higher, and Berkshire is not really invested in the biggest opportunities outside of Apple, which has really not had a good year. So, I mean, when it comes, and then Buffett's leaving. So there's just not that much excitement around Berkshire right now. Yeah, they didn't buy the April dip at all, which is kind of wild, bro. That means they thought April was expensive, or they thought April was going to get worse. And it just goes to show how many institutions did not buy that dip and how much things have changed since then. S&P 500 right here, 627. That's up 0.91%, trying to get that full 1% on the day, which would make up a majority of the loss that we had back in Friday. Reddit, wow, congrats to those in Reddit. They put up some big daddy numbers on earnings. They really show a top line revenue growth of upwards of 75%. I mean, when you do that and you're profitable and you increase your guidance by 30 million on adjusted EBITDA, the street's going to reciprocate. This goes to a larger conversation around valuation. We watched the clip last night from a podcast, The Compound and Friends, where the guest was asked, hey, what do you think about valuation? Does valuation matter? And to sum up what he said, which I'm starting to really agree with, in this market, with the amount of tailwinds we have in regards to AI, robotics, self-driving, productivity, margin enhancement, all these different things, it's hard to say that valuation is the only thing that people should care about without all those tailwinds, meaning the rich get rich and the poor get poor. If you're a company like UNH and there's no narrative and the earnings growth is and there's not really a AI tailwind, you're going to get a crappy multiple. Whereas if you're a Palantir where the AI tailwind is everything and you're putting up the growth, you are going to get a multiple that far exceeds what people think you should get because you're just a good quality company. And there's not that many companies out there in the public markets. There's probably like 100 of them realistically out of 8,000 that are meaningful enough to invest in for the next 10 years. And because of the lack of quality companies and the massive TAM of the opportunity when it comes to AI, it's not that valuation doesn't matter. It's just that valuation maybe is not the only underlying concern that should be factoring into your decisions when it comes to buying different equities. And I think that's what we're going to see out as investors continue to pay for a really strong premium with earnings growth. Microsoft right here, 532. Meta is up 2%. Apple's up 1.4. Grab's trying to get back to $5. It's at 489. That's up 2%. S&P 627. AMD 1.85%. Oklo is 75. That's up 4.79%. That's up 4.79%. Yes, Joby's mooning. Congrats to those that are in Joby. I am not in this one, but this one has had a hell of a year. Absolutely hell of a year. Joby's stock year to date is up 144%, dude. And it doesn't seem like a meme stock, to be honest, because every time Joby goes up, it's not because of some random guy pumping it saying it's going to go to $82. It's because of a different headline. Like, I think we've covered it like 5 times in the past week, and like there's a new headline every morning to get people to be excited about Joby. So the headline today is Joby's acquiring Blade's passenger business for up to $125 million, a move that gives Joby a key urban terminal at JFK, Newark, and across Manhattan. Blade flew 50,000 passengers last year. Medical Transport would spin off as the standalone partner, and Joby will eventually swap Blade's helicopters for its electric aircraft. It looks like that is what's pumping Joby. I think you guys mentioned an L3 Harris partnership as well that could be helping it. But it seems like that partnership is what's getting it momentum. Yeah, and they got an L3 partnership this morning. Wow. You got two pretty big pieces of news for Joby. And that's what's getting this stock to really get some momentum. So they're acquiring Blade and their operations in the tri-state area in the Northeast, and they got a partnership with a major defense contractor. Joby right here, it's up about 15.9%. Reddit 197, trying to get 200. Palantir 158, Open Door 230. Open Door is up about 10%. SoFi flat. Where's Hoodie? Are we green? Hoodie goes green. Slightly green, but goes green, which is not too bad. Yeah, so I see some people in the comments saying, well, it just means value companies have less earnings, therefore they don't get a higher multiple. I think that's missing the entire argument that about, you know, what the guy was saying on the podcast when it comes to valuation and growth. Palantir has phenomenal earnings, but why is Palantir trading at 600 times? Tesla has horrible earnings. Why is Tesla trading at 200 times? Right? So it's not just about, oh, companies have good earnings, therefore you give them a multiple, because the multiple that some of these companies getting are astronomical. Apple, why are they trading at 30 times? Why is Google trading at 19 times, even though Google has some pretty damn good earnings? Like when you try to say a logical syllogism of good companies have good earnings, therefore they have a good multiple, bad companies have bad earnings, therefore they have a shitty multiple, it distracts from the underlying argument that the multiple is largely irrelevant to an extent if they are a good company. Like the underlying, this goes back to Tom Lee's argument about, is Tesla a Da Vinci? Is it a one-of-one painting that you can't find another one out there for? Is Palantir a Da Vinci? Is NVIDIA a Da Vinci? Obviously, they have to put up the earnings growth to be able to get the multiple that can continue to inflect in terms of how the market perceives it. But if there's something deeper there in terms of the opportunity of AI that Palantir, NVIDIA, AMD, Tesla can attack, they're going to get a much more egregious multiple, in the words of some people that can't understand why they trade at these levels, because there's not many other good opportunities that are out there to get that capital. And that's the broader argument about valuation not mattering. Now, again, I say valuation not mattering with a caveat, which is that obviously valuation matters. It's just, is it the most important thing over the next 5 years when we think about investments? And so far, for the past couple of years, it hasn't been. It really hasn't been. I mean, you're telling me Robinhood deserves to trade at 30 times sales? I would tell you yes, because I'm a Robinhood bull. But there's a lot of people that would be like, Robinhood, why is it trading at 30 times sales? There's no reason. It's a brokerage, yada, yada. But then there's something deeper into how Robinhood's enabling itself to be a massive player in the age of finance. A lot of that fueled with AI as well. And so that is why I think the valuation argument is getting a different tenor in terms of how people think about it. Reddit right here, 200. That's up 6.3. That's up 6.3. That's green. ASML's at 698. Open Doors at 230. And then Palantir right here at 158. Amit's trying to sell Palantir at a 600 PE. I think that's missing the point. I'm not trying to justify the PE. I mean, since it was $40, $50, I haven't been trying to justify the PE on a numerical basis. But I am saying that if you think Palantir is a short, and for those that have been shorting it, or Robinhood's a short, like the shorts haven't worked out. And the reason it hasn't worked out is because the market is willing to pay more. And if you just say it's a meme hype bubble, therefore the market's able to pay more, okay, be my guest. And you should probably go short because there's not many opportunities that are going to fall 50%. Robinhood and Palantir should be the obvious opportunities if that's the case. Tesla should be an obvious opportunity. But the reason they haven't fell 50% is likely because there is something deeper to how these companies are being valued. And valuation doesn't just mean PE. There's a lot more to think about when it comes to valuation. And I think that requires a deeper understanding of these companies than just their core metrics. And their core metrics matter. Don't get me wrong. I care about those very deeply. And those can be thesis breakers if those metrics disappoint for multiple quarters in a row. But as long as the metrics are continuing their momentum and there's an underlying thesis and story and opportunity for them to capture over the next decade, that is why I think these companies are getting the earnings premium that they're getting. 176.91 on AMD. That's up about 3%. That is green. Bitcoin right here. That's 114.8. That's trying to go green as well. The market isn't efficient. Okay, well, I mean, dude, if your argument is the market isn't efficient, Palantir should be worth like $30. That would be a $60 billion market cap doing $4 billion in revenue. That's what, 15 times sales? That is the average price to sales of every software company or every like major SaaS company. So is Palantir going back to 30? Are we that inefficient that we're 500% overvalued? I mean, if that's how you want to think of it, okay. But I feel like there's a little bit of humbling that needs to be, including myself at 40, 50. I was like, all right, it's getting expensive. It's like, no, I've been humbled by Palantir. There's a whole different way to think of these things. And if it is going to 30 because it's so irrational, then short it. I mean, like everyone should be, if you have that mentality, you should be short some of these names because these are the biggest bubbles in history. But if you're not going to go short or you're not going to sell, then you obviously think there's probably more momentum. Wow, S&P up 1%. S&P up 1% right here. 1.05%. That is green. So we are recovering almost 65% of the loss that we had on Friday, which is, 61%. We are recovering 61% of the loss that we had on Friday. If we get another 0.62%, which is another couple bucks on the S&P 631, we're going to be green from Friday. We're going to be green from Friday. Grab's at 493. Yep, grab right there, 493. Grab 495. Dude, grab should be $6 right now. grab should not be this low. So hopefully we can get this one to get some momentum. Again, it had to take a dip when the S&P fell as much as it fell on Friday as well. But I would be honest if I saw any red flags. I mean, genuinely, I went through the earnings a couple times over the weekend. I listened to the call again. I don't see the red flag. The only red flag is sacrifice margin for market share, and I don't see that as a red flag. I see that as, hey, go grow. Go take the market. Investors will subsidize lack of margins right now because we know in the future when you have essentially a monopoly in the region, the profits are just going to be printing. So I think from that perspective, Grab is getting that momentum. Robinhood right here, 100.60. That's green. Joby still up 15%. Oklow's up 75, 76. That's up another 6%. I mean, Oklow is the best example of what I'm talking about when it comes to valuation. It's like this company doesn't even have a product. There's no revenue. It was at $6 in January. Now it's at 75. Either you call that a meme stock, or you look under the hood and say, wait a second, nuclear energy is going to be really important. Wait a second, we don't create enough energy in this country to fund all the AI data centers that we keep propping up. Wait a second, electricity demand is going through the roof. Okay, what are the companies out there that are going to capitalize on that opportunity? Oklow pops up. And as long as Oklow is not a bullshit company, aka it's not a scam, which I haven't done that much due diligence on it, but from the people I know that have invested in the Series B round when it was a startup, they really do believe in it. Here's a graph on US electricity demand going through the roof over the past 10 years, especially in the age of AI. Then you would say, all right, this is a real company. They don't have a real product yet, but eventually they will grow into that valuation. Therefore, we're going to give them the meme, or not the meme, the momentum before they grow, because they're not a meme. You know, that would be the argument. Now, again, I'm not making a judgment on Oklow because I haven't studied that much, but that to me is how the market is starting to price a lot of these opportunities. And you can either fight it and be upset about the market doing that and go buy Pepsi and Coca-Cola and get your 3% dividend, or you can invest in the future. And you know, this is what Steve, by the way, called me after the stream ended. Yes, he couldn't pick up because he was on another phone call when I tried to call him during the market close. But one of the things Steve was saying was like, hey, why would anyone invest in Coca-Cola? Like, realistically, why are people buying this thing? For a 2% dividend? Really? Like what? Like, it almost renders a lot of these dividend names worthless in the age of AI, where valuation takes a step behind the momentum and opportunity that these companies can capture. Palantir right here at 160. And, you know, maybe you're a pension fund, you're a fixed income fund, you're an institutional investor. There will always be demand and liquidity for those types of names. But over the coming years, if we see the type of growth that we all expect to see in regards to self-driving, robotics, margin improvements, et cetera, you're going to get a lot of people that pile into the names that matter, which is NVIDIA, Oracle, Palantir, Robinhood, Tesla, Rocket Lab, like these companies that are taking on massive TAMs and executing against it and have a tailwind of AI behind them. It's just hard to buy Coca-Cola when that stuff is happening. Yeah, sugar water at a 24 PE is not exactly value. Agreed. Now, granted, we get a massive recession, black swan, the valuation starts to matter a lot more, right? Because then people get really picky with their money. So all of this makes sense if we have a good macroeconomic environment. And we got to see if that can keep up. Affirm right there is up 3.5. Spotify's up 7. SoFi trying to go green, but still a little red. SoundHound up 3.5. Big Bear is up 10%. Wow, Big Bear is getting some moves. MicroStrategy is up 1.3, and then Meta is up 1.75. Meta's up 1.75. Am I buying Amazon? No. However, I did ask you guys last night if you would buy Amazon or UNH at these levels, and I think a majority of people said Amazon. Let me do another poll right here. By the way, 77% of you said S&P 500 green. I did this poll last night, but I'm going to do it again. If you had to hold one for a year, which one? I asked Steve last night after the future show, and even Steve, who's the biggest Tesla hater that I know, he said, I'm picking Tesla over UNH. I was surprised when I was like, really? He was like, I'm picking Elon Musk over UNH. And I think a lot of people would do that. Now, granted, maybe UNH outperforms, who knows? But the point is, people want to pay for quality. And even though Tesla's earnings are disgusting and UNH is severely undervalued compared to Tesla, people would rather buy quality than buy something that's more unknown. So it's just a new sort of paradigm of how I'm beginning to think of this market as well. Google, are we at 190 on the Googs? Googs is at 193. All right, there you go. That's up 2.2. So this is a pretty remarkable Monday morning. Let's see if this holds through towards the end of the day. But folks, I can't be upset about this Monday morning. I mean, pretty much everything that took a 3 to 4% haircut last week is getting some of their momentum back. The S&P is up 1%, recovering 60% of the losses we had on Friday. We lost $1 trillion on Friday. We just gained basically, basically 600 billion of that trillion. And we gained 15 trillion over the past couple of months. So if we, were to actually stay and lose that trillion, you can't be that upset given how much we gained as well. And we're getting some momentum. We are getting some momentum. Rigetti, that's up a little bit as well. 10%, actually a little bit more than a little bit. That's green. 70-30. It's the exact same numbers we had last night. 70-30 on Tesla UNH. 70-30 is what you would say, or what you guys are saying in terms of which one you would pick. Robinhood 99.94. UNH up 1%. Reddit up 6.7. Spotify up 7. Where are the semis today? Are the semis giving us... Wow, all the semis are green. Intel, SMCI, AMD, NVIDIA, Lam Research, ARM, Marvell, TSM, Qualcomm, Dell, Micron, all of them getting a rebound this morning. Figma is tanking, and that is okay. That's a little bit of normalcy coming to the market, down 17%. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, this thing was a bit expensive at 130, or it got to 150 at one point. So that's normal. And that's actually a good thing. You know what's happening right here with Figma? People are selling Figma to go buy Amazon, to go buy NVIDIA, to go buy AMD. Like, they're looking at other higher quality companies versus Figma, and they're like, wait a second, why am I holding on to this thing? Most people don't even know what Figma does. And so I think the sell-off is probably people saying, yeah, I'm going to go buy the S&P. I'm going to go buy Tesla. I'm going to buy Google. I'm going to buy names that I know are going to be compounders over the next 10 years. Not saying Figma's a bad company. It's just, hey, the IPO price was 33. Maybe it doesn't need to be trading, 4x since the IPO. Aren't you not allowed to sell within 30 days? You are allowed. You will just be penalized. So my dad sold 19 shares at 135, and now he can't do an IPO for 60 days. So your specific brokerage on Robinhood, they'll ban you for 60 days. But I mean, 2 months, I don't even know if we're going to get any good companies IPOing in 2 months. So it's not that big of a deal. But it depends on if you want to trade IPOs over the coming months. By the way, given Figma's success, if Anduril goes public, Anduril's going to 100 billion overnight. Like, it's just that simple, dude. Like, Anduril's IPO is going to be insane. I don't think they're going to go public this year. It's probably going to be S&P new highs for the day, probably in 2026. But my goodness, is that going to be crazy? It is going to be wild. The Canva IPO I will be buying. MP Materials Corporation, that is slightly down on the day. Canva IPO, they're probably going to get to 100 billion as well. Canva does about 3.3 billion in revenue. They have 220 million monthly active users, and they're growing 50%. And I use Canva every day. So for me, it would be a little bit of a Peter Lynch type of investment, but I don't want to pay 100 billion for it. I want to pay, closer to like 50 to 75. If it actually goes to 100, I would wait for a pullback. But I think that IPO is going to be very hot because I think Figma is a great product, but I think Canva just has more usage because they go to consumer versus enterprise. And it seems like AI would be a massive tailwind for Canva long-term as well. Yeah, I use and pay for Canva, $12-13 a month, and like it helps me with all my thumbnails, everything that I need. It's like the easier version of Adobe without having to pay $30-40 a month just to use it. SBET, is that green? SBET, BMNR is green. SBET's up 11%. Not bad. I know it's down a lot from the past 2 weeks. It was at 30. Now it's at 19, but still. And then BMNR, that one's weird, bro. Why is this not up more? They bought a lot of Ethereum. You would think this one takes a little bit of a breather, stops taking a breather. But you're not seeing that much. You're just not seeing that much. BMNR right there, 32.79, not really getting momentum. I mean, probably because Ethereum tanked about $200-300 over the weekend. So even though they bought more Ethereum, but the MNAV now is low. BMNR's market cap is 3.68. They have 2.9 on the balance sheet. So their NAV is, or their MNAV, 1.2. I mean, usually they get around 1.8. So I don't know. You might have a little bit more momentum. I don't know when the Canva IPO is going to be. Hopefully this year, maybe 2026. But if it happens this year, it would be pretty exciting. Iren, again, this one got pumped up a lot last month, and now it's started to take a little bit of a breather. Big for hyperscalers when it comes to AI, data centers, all that stuff. I don't know if Iren's going to be, the massive compounder that it was over the past 2 months. I think a lot of people also got into this already. They're going to probably need a catalyst. And they did sign like a gigawatt data center deal 2 weeks ago. I like it. I don't own it, but it does seem like they're a lot more than just a Bitcoin mining company now. TMDX, that one had a great earnings as well. That one's pumping. Oh, what earnings did we have this morning? TMDX right here is up 5%. Did we have any? Let me see. This morning we had On Semiconductor, Wayfair. We had On and Wayfair. Okay, let's see some of their results. Nothing too crazy on earnings. Okay, so On Semiconductor, they beat by 1% on EPS, and they came in line with revenue. So you got a little bit from them, nothing crazy. And then Wayfair, which sells furniture, 164% beat on EPS. That's a big one. And then revenue, 5% beat. Where is Wayfair stock? Ticker symbol W. Yeah, it's up 6%. Dude, that's it. That 165% beat on EPS for a company that sells furniture, which uniquely is affected by tariffs because a lot of that furniture is not made in the United States. I am actually a bit surprised that they beat EPS by over 150%. There's got to be either an accounting thing there, and if it's not accounting, that means there's plenty of demand. Also, home demand is down, so who are they selling all this furniture to? Like, that's a very confusing earnings to see them beat by that much, because we know home demand is down. So there's got to be something there that they were able to pull off that got the street excited. That's up 6%. Market cap right there is $8 billion. BMNR, that's up 4%. Rigetti's up 9%. And then Googs getting to 194. Wow. S&P 629. 629. It is now recovered 73% of the loss that we had on Friday. Not bad. They could be stuffing the warehouses before tariffs. Yeah, I'm going to go through the Wayfair call and see what they're guided for tariffs and if they weren't impacting Q2, because maybe the worst is going to come in Q3 when the impact actually sustains itself, if it does. But dude, beating by 150% in this environment on something that uniquely is affected by tariffs in an industry that, housing is like kind of the tailwind for demand, it's pretty damn incredible for Wayfair. S&P 629, again, that's still holding some momentum. It's Trump's market again. That is correct. It is Trump's market again. IBIT, BlackRock Fund, that's up 1.5%. And then Ethereum, the BlackRock ETF, that's up 3.34. So the reason those are up is because from Friday's prices, Ethereum and Bitcoin are up. But over the weekend, they did take a little bit of a tumble. Again, Bitcoin got to 111 on Saturday. The reason it fell is because of that China news. China said they're banning crypto, but they've banned crypto for like the past 5 years. So I don't think people care too much about that. 70-30 on Tesla UNH. 70-30 on the Tesla UNH poll. Yeah, a lot of the losses that people had on Friday, are starting to get recovered. Nvidia trying to go for 177. I was down 94,000 on Friday, and now that 94 is basically, if we do the math, 17 plus 50, about 20. So we recovered about 70 grand from that 94 that we lost. It's not too bad. I would imagine for a lot of people similar, as the S&P is up about 1%. So resiliency, which has been the name of the market this entire year, continues to play itself out. 621.20 S&P continuing. You're just getting people that are saying, all right, that's my dip, 2% down on the S&P. I'm buying. And that is incredible. And it kind of makes you think maybe Tom Lee's right. Maybe August you do get some more momentum versus not. We do have some macro data. Let me pull this up right here. It is 10 a.m. We have factory orders came in at negative 4.8% month over month versus expectations of negative 6%. So that's a beat. You had about a negative 1.2% adjustment. The previous one was 8.3%. And then factory orders ex transportation coming at 0.4%. The market thought it would be 0.1%. That is also a beat. That is not too bad. That is not too bad. Big Bear's up 11%. Rigetti's up 10%. And then Google up 2.5%. I am trying to confirm if Paramount is going to be bought out on August 7th. If they are, we will have another chance for Robinhood for the S&P 500 this Friday. From all indications, it looks like it's closing on Friday. And if it's closing on Friday, then that means the S&P 500 will need a new candidate Friday after hours. And maybe that's Robinhood. Maybe it's AppLovin. Maybe it's IBKR. We're going to see. I will probably get final confirmation in a couple of days on if this deal is definitely closing. But from everything I've read, it closes on the 7th. Now, does that mean Paramount gets rebalanced out of the S&P on the 7th? I think so, because that's what happened for the last couple acquisitions. And that means we'll have a new candidate. UNH, we're getting some moves on UNH. UNH is green. That's up about 1.64, 240. Goog's trying to get back to 194. Amazon 215. Tesla 310. That's green on the day. Grab's up about 3%. And then Hoodie at 100.36. I will not be deeply covering HIMS today just because we're probably going to be very focused on Palantir. There's tons of people on X that will be covering HIMS. My expectations are for HIMS to continue to grow the way they have been growing. Oklo's up almost 9% right here. Last time they grew really nicely, but then the stock kind of tanked on earnings. Again, it's run up a lot going into it. So I just have no idea. But I think clarity around the Novo lawsuit is going to be probably what could be a little bit of a mover on the stock. If Andrew comes out and says, hey, we're just not that concerned about it. We're going to weather through the storm. And we think our innovation and all the people that we hired, and they got a bunch of new chief AI officers, all this stuff is going to lead to more product-led growth. Then I believe the market could overlook it. But not expecting some massive earnings beat or massive earnings miss. Google right here, 194. Rigetti, 1557. SBET up 14% on the day. Wayfair now up 8%. And then the S&P, 629. Wow. SharpLink bought another 18,000 Ethereum 15 minutes ago. Goodness, dude. It is turning into a race for who can be the biggest treasury. SBET market cap is 2.17 billion. BM&R market cap is about 3.7. And Tom Lee has almost double the amount of ETH, I believe, that SBET has. APLD, is that green? That's up about 4%. And then Navitas, both of those were green last week. That is also up about 3.2. All right, you're getting some momentum. I mean, you can't be that upset about this Monday. You really can't. This is quite incredible. It goes back to the argument about resiliency. And that's why, I meant to kind of go on this argument and try to break down this argument around valuation, because it is just getting really hard to, like, the S&P is technically overvalued, right? It's trading at 22 times, historically trades at 18 times. Like, why is it overvalued? Well, the market is changing, and Coca-Cola, GE, and ExxonMobil are not the companies that define the market now. We just have a totally different perspective. Or at least the market has a totally different perspective on how they think of, valuation writ large. Hood 101, all right, getting some love right there. There you go, 101, that's up 1.13. UNH up 1.7. S&P, basically high of the day, 629.06. Iren's up 3. Circle's down. Very successful IPO, but maybe a bit aggressively valued. And then CoreWeave is also down. Another successful IPO, but also aggressively valued. NVIDIA earnings are going to be a banger if we stay optimistic. I don't see how NVIDIA is not a banger. We talked about this last night on the Future Show, but the guy who Zucks offered $1 billion to for for coming to Meta, yeah, it wasn't $1 billion. It was $1.5 billion over 6 years. And he is the co-founder of Mira Murati's startup called Thinking Machines. And that Mira Murati is the OpenAI CTO, the former CTO. So she left. She started her own company. And Zucks gave this guy a compensation package of $1.5 billion. And he said no. And Bloomberg reported the entire 50-person team at Mira Murati's company got packages ranging from $200 million to $500 million to join Meta. All of them rejected the offers. AKA, they've built such a culture around the potential that they're going to build the next big AI startup, which I don't even know what the hell Thinking Machines does, but they already raised a couple billion. The fact that Zucks was able to give $1.5 billion to one person. By the way, that one person he offered it to, his name is Andrew Tulloch. He worked at Meta for 10 years. So Zucks already knows him. And now it's kind of like Zucks saying, hey, you want to come back? And the guy said, no, I'm staying here. It just goes to show how much money is in this ecosystem. If Zucks is about to spend $1 billion on one person, when it comes to NVIDIA chips, I mean, like, it is a blank check, unlimited pocketbook for the amount of companies that are ready to buy NVIDIA's product. And the problem is NVIDIA doesn't have enough product to give them. Not NVIDIA doesn't have enough demand to compensate for that product. It's incredible. It's pretty incredible. Josh says, if you take the PE and divide it by the average profit margins for the S&P 500, the market is not overvalued from that lens. Yeah, that is a hell of a point. In fact, let me bring up this one clip of talking about margins as well. One of the things we're not talking about enough is that margins are changing dramatically. And as a result of margins changing, you know, you're just starting to see a lot more momentum in regards to expansion. So to take a look at this clip right here of a company called McKesson, which doesn't do a lot of profit, but how they could dramatically increase EPS growth with AI being a tailwind for their margins.
Meta, great.
Show us these charts.
That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Here's a price to forward earnings over time. So how does this figure in? This is part of the AI answer.
So I just think Costco is a poster child for a company where you get margin expansion, it gets a higher multiple. This thing is a low margin business, and the multiple got to over 50 times late last year on forward earnings. And the reason is because their net margins were going up, and people thought they'd do a better job of monetizing at the door and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I pointed it out because there are a lot of really low margin businesses in the market. I've been recommending McKesson and Cardinal and Cencora, they're drug distributors. For people listening, if they knew what the revenue of McKesson was, if you guys knew, I'd be shocked. Okay, McKesson is $360 billion revenue company.
Oh my God.
In 1 year.
I did not know that.
At 1% margin. They're a drug distributor, pass through. If they can somehow predict employee and customer behavior better and margins go to 1.5%, that's 50% earnings growth. It's going to trade at 25 to 30 times earnings. So there's a lot of
that right there blew my mind. I mean, think about that. McKesson does $360 billion in revenue. They make 1% on their margins. You have some AI efficiency in regards to predictions, the ability for the market to better understand their employee turnover, all these little nitty-gritty things that AI can be a tailwind for. Those margins go to 1.5. You just got 50% earnings growth. Guess what? The market's going to pay a premium on 50% earnings growth. And that is why it's hard to just use valuation, because if you only use valuation, why the hell has Costco been trading at 50 times? It's freaking Costco. It's not NVIDIA gross margins of 70%, right? Like, how do the value investors defend that? You can't. There's other elements to Costco that go into the overall valuation. But if AI is a tailwind for all these legacy companies that have crappy margins that are now going to go up even a little bit in a dollar amount, but overall on a percentage growth basis, it's a lot. The market's going to pay for that. Robinhood up about 2%, 101.45 on Hood. And it's a totally new era to be thinking about valuations when you have that type of growth across every single sector that's happening. American Eagle, 12%. Trump did say he likes Sydney Sweeney. So maybe that's the pump that we're seeing on American Eagle. The company that he was talking about, I believe, is McKesson, MCK. MCK, $87 billion company doing $360 billion in revenue per year, $700 stock. MCK is the ticker for those that want to look at it. But this is a company that's primed to have their EPS going up based on their margins, enhancing likely from AI. Affirm's at 70. Okay, so Affirm getting some love. Wow, 5.7%. Affirm has earnings in a couple weeks, so that one getting some momentum. I'll check resistance on hoodie at 70 or at 102. Again, hood crushed earnings, dude. They should be, in my opinion, a lot higher, but they also moved up a lot. So it's probably going to take a little bit of time for the street to recognize it. Navitas is up 3%. BMNR is up 5%. Hoodie 101. Costco 958. NVIDIA breaking through 177, trying to get 178. In terms of hood resistance, 102, we are looking at about 20,000 shares. And NVIDIA, to get to 178, we are looking at 51,000 shares for NVIDIA to get there. U.S. total vehicle sales for July. Okay, we got that number, 16.4 million. Expected 16, previous 15.3. Okay, that's not bad. That's a beat on overall vehicle sales. 16.4 million. That's a 400,000 vehicle sale beat. Expected was 16 and previous was 15.3 in July. Did anyone buy a car in the month of July? Did anyone buy a car at all in the month of July? Dude, 16.4 is not bad. That's a healthy beat on auto sales. Maybe some of that was compelled with the EV credit going away, so people ended up buying a lot more EVs. By the way, tariff revenue also grew in July to about 29 billion. So we are on track to collect over 300 billion in tariffs if the current tariff rates continue. But maybe we get some deals done, which would decrease some of that revenue, but increase the overall spending activity between the United States and different countries that we work with. I bought a used one from Toyota. B-Love says I did. About 4 or 5 of you that bought a new car. 16.4 million. That's a lot of cars, dude. I'm going to see if that's a record for the year, but that feels like a pretty damn strong amount for this year. By the way, Mexico consumer confidence also rose in June. So it went up to 45.9, upwards from 45.5 in May. So you do have Mexico consumer confidence also getting some momentum. Robinhood 101.8, SharpLink up 15, Duolingo up 3, Arista's up 2, and then you got American Eagle. Wow, up 14%, dude. I guess people are coming in based on what Trump said. I mean, I don't think there's any update on American Eagle other than whatever Trump said, and people are excited. Yeah, VIX back to 17. Dude, you couldn't ask for a better Monday in terms of the rebound. Like, if we end up recovering everything that we got from last Friday, S&P 628.9, I mean, that would be the best case scenario, but I don't think people are that sad about that. Truck sales, 13.8 million versus 12.8 million. Okay, let's ask Gemini, is July historically a big month for car sales? Maybe it's seasonal. Maybe it's not really the economy. Maybe it's just July. All right, Gemini says yes. Gemini says July is considered a strong month for car sales due to several factors. Summer is a popular time for car buying, end of model year clearances and new model introductions, and then summer holidays like 4th of July. Okay, so maybe it's just seasonal. Still, you got a decent amount of cars that people bought in July. Fear and greed. Are we back to greed? We are back to, it looks like, greed. Let me see if this chart can load. There you go, 57 on greed. We ran neutral on Friday. So the 1% move is getting us a little bit of momentum. Yeah, the market agrees with Trump on job. I mean, the market definitely thinks that a rate cut's coming through. And I think that could also be getting the momentum. Wow, S&P, high of the day, 629.34. Robinhood busting through 102, trying to get to 103. Bitmine's up 5. HIMS is up 2. Rigetti's up 10. Where is our Palantir? Palantir 159.83. Palantir is probably going to be pegged around 159, 160 until we get earnings. And then we have to see if we go up or down. Let's do a pump or dump on Palantir. What do you guys think? Are we pumping or dumping on Palantir? What do we think? Pump or dump? What do we got? What do we got on Mr. Palantir? Where is Grab? Grab is at very close to being $5, $4.98. $4.98. Dude, last time we dumped, and it was the first quarter we dumped in like 4 quarters. So I just wonder, and I think it's because the street thought they would get 40% and they came in with 39%. I think we're going to get 40% this time. Like, I think it's going, I mean, I think it's going to be closer to 44, 45%, which means if we do, I just wonder how the street thinks of it. Because when you have that type of growth, you might just have a lot more excitement in terms of the overall momentum from that type of an earnings beat. But we need to put up those numbers. We need to put up those numbers to see if we can get there. Grab right there at 498, Hoodie 102.25, and then Palantir 159.50. 55% of you say pump. All right, so kind of 50-50. What do I think is going to happen? I think if they come out with 45% growth, I think we go up. Like, I think the street likes that. But then again, it's August, it's September. You tend to get some weakness. I shared this chart last night. September is actually worse than August. So we really do have to be prepared. Now, I know Tom Lee said August is going to be amazing. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But yeah, it's just really hard to predict. I thought last time they would pump. They ended up dumping. Maybe that's different this time. September, again, averages negative 0.6% on the S&P. August at least averages a little green. But September tends to be more red. So we are going to see after hours what happens. Figma's down 18%. Again, Figma just got a bit too expensive. So that one taking a breather is very normal, in my opinion. Figma right here, 99.56. So that's below 100. Nvidia trying to crack 178, 2 cents away. Very close. Robinhood very close to 103 as well. Let's see if those two can get above it. And then Oklo, I don't know why Oklo's up this morning, 8%. I feel like there's got to be a headline there. But maybe it's just technicals and people buying in. Yeah, I don't see any headlines. I see more option flow coming in for Oklo. Also, we have the 10-year bond auction this week on Wednesday. That'll be very important. Nvidia, there you go, 178. 178 on Nvidia. That 10-year bond auction could be market moving if the yield comes in a bit higher than expected. We saw what happened with the S&P when the 20-year came in a little bit higher. So it can be very important for the bonds to kind of trade appropriately going into this week. Fubo's up 7%, continuing a little bit of its pump that it had last week. So that is green. Amazon, they are not letting this one run today. Amazon, again, they took it down 8% last week, which felt a bit ridiculous. Amazon, wow, continuing to go down. Almost at 213. I don't think there's a narrative issue with Amazon. I think the only problem with Amazon is Microsoft is growing way faster in cloud. And that's not Amazon's fault. Amazon has been growing, for 20 years in cloud. Microsoft just started really accelerating it. So maybe the street's kind of pegging it to Microsoft and saying, hey, there's not enough growth, which is not really a reason to get upset about it. But I think that's why that one's getting hit. And then you have AMD. AMD right here is also at 2.9%. Okay, so let me pull up this clip right here about valuation as well. Again, I was talking a lot about this morning about the concept of a new mechanism or paradigm to understand valuation. This is about a 2-minute clip. Let's listen to this, and then we'll keep going from there.
Whether or not some of those things will ever reverse.
Yeah. I mean, part of me thinks it's like I could teach a semester at school about that. Like, to answer it in 30 seconds isn't easy, but I'll just say.
We will spot you 60 seconds.
60 seconds. I'll say it's because the market makes stocks cheaper. Stocks that get cheaper on average get cheaper for a reason, that the fundamentals are more likely to be impaired, and stocks that get more expensive on average.
Has that always been the case?
Less than it used to be. It used to be, listen, I'll answer it this way. I used to think like value investing made sense and growth investing was crazy. In like the late 90s, when I was forming my investment matrix, I'm like, all right, well, I know like how much of a discount should happen in recession. I know where demand and supply is and when they'll run out of ability to borrow money. And I'll just kind of dimension the value. And growth was like, I'm looking at my finger and there's something called a TAM. It's a total available market. And that guy doesn't know, whatever. And so it just made more sense to me. And now I'd say it's like the exact opposite. Like, if I show you every stock that trades about 10 times forward earnings in the mega large cap universe, there's a single one in there. You'd be like, whoa, that's kind of surprising that American Airlines is cheap. Like, of course it's cheap. It's going to file for bankruptcy in the next 10 years or whatever. Like, the traditional autos. Did you know that General Motors traded at a low price? Like, there's nothing on that list. It's all cheap for a reason we understand. And so the value guys just gambling on some future improvement
Re-rating,
that they can't see and have no visibility on. Because if they could, we would see it too.
That sounds more speculative than betting that people will still want iPhones next year.
Yeah, than betting on AI working.
Yeah.
Like, so I was at this pitch for a public AI high fee fund from this billionaire investor who was raising money on JP Morgan's private wealth network. And I was like, I'm going to hate this. I want to like hear this pitch and I'm going to like be so cynical. I'm going to like mumble about it when I walked out. And even with my negative pre-attitude, the guy crushed it.
How much did you give him?
So it's funny. It's funny. He said, the answer is 0 because, I'm a cynical guy, but I was with somebody. I'll answer the question. So what happened is it's like a high fee public, and you're buying NVIDIA and Broadcom and infrastructure. And by the way, it's all 50% since the guy reads them. So the person, Dog and Pony show said, hey, isn't this all obvious? And then he gave an answer, and I was like, this guy's money. He goes, yeah, this guy's got several $1 billion personally. And he goes,
is it Chamath?
He goes, I have made 120% of my net worth on things that everyone else told me was obvious, and then lost 20% on everything else everyone's ever told me about. And I was like, okay. So you bought some cloud computing 10 years ago, you're buying some AI stuff now, and you're trying to get me to sell it when there's 7 years left in the cycle. Come back to me. And, like I said to you, at the party, it's 8:30. There's a dinner and a band and a party till 2 a.m. It's 8:30 p.m. You want me to leave?
Yeah. Because
it's at 27 times earnings on Meta. Great.
Show us the.
I mean, it is a really interesting point, which is just that, hey, the most obvious thing to buy tends to be the most obvious thing to buy. NVIDIA is the most obvious thing to buy, which means probably NVIDIA tends to be the most obvious thing that will give you returns. I mean, it's not super complicated. Palantir right here back above 160, but to hold your nose and buy some of these names in the face of it being obvious, even if the valuation doesn't make you happy to buy it, begs the question, are we in a new investing landscape and a new investing paradigm fueled by AI that changes the dynamics of how we think about valuation? I think the answer to that question is yes. And as long as these companies continue putting up earnings growth, that paradigm likely will continue to persist based on the current market that we're in right now. So 102.61 on Hoodie, again, is paying 25 times sales for a Hood expensive? Sure. But give me another company that's growing the way that Hood is growing and that is able to capture the market opportunity the way that Hood is doing, and that's actually innovating at every layer of the earnings call to the actual financial ecosystem. It's hard to find it. You tend to think Hood is a Da Vinci, Palantir is a Da Vinci, NVIDIA is a Da Vinci, Tesla's a Da Vinci, and that's why they get their momentum. UNH right here, 239. That's selling off a little bit, but still kind of green on the day. Ethereum, that's up 3%, getting some love. Then Google trying to get to 195. 194.25. Travis, thanks for the $5 super chat. Amit, what are your thoughts on Baba and Uber? Any news coming out soon for the stocks going up and down? So Uber has already had a great year. It was at $60 in January. It's at 87 right now. Can't be that upset about that. I think Uber does have the headwind of the robotaxi narrative. Granted, that narrative is going to take years to play out. So the free cash flow growth of Uber is not slowing down. And I think ultimately that's what the stock will trade on. I don't think there's any massive a tailwind for Uber, but I do think the $300 million investment into Lucid is stupid. And I think their attempt to like build out some robotaxi fleet with some of these other vehicle companies outside of just like doubling down on Waymo, to me is also kind of ridiculous. So unfortunately, the problem with Uber is like when autonomous vehicles do take up the majority of their market, which is North America, is Uber ready to transition into that future? And I don't know if they are, but it's not being discounted to the point where Uber is dead like it was in January. I just don't know if Uber gets a lot of momentum if robotaxis via Waymo and Tesla really start scaling. And then in terms of Baba, I don't have any thoughts on Baba. Again, China, it's also made its move. This thing was $50 back in 2024, September. Now it's 117. So it's already made a pretty big move. I just think there's a lot of other opportunities to buy outside of some of the Chinese AI names. So I personally wouldn't be touching Baba. If we do pump on Palantir due to earnings, then what do you think we'll see in price action? I feel a 10 to 15% isn't out of the question despite the current valuation. Yes, I agree. Now, do we hold that pump? Time will tell, right? Because who knows? Trump says something tomorrow and then the entire market tanks. So that's why, people are, I find it a bit confusing why people care so much about the price action. Like, unless you bought Palantir yesterday, and I know the majority of you did not, the stock's made its move. You've had an amazing run. Would you like it to go up? Of course, all of us would like it to continue going up. But we all know it's expensive. We all know that it trades at a pretty aggressive multiple. And we all know that even with a massive earnings beat, it might not be enough for the street. So if it goes down to 130 again, okay, it is what it is. If it goes up, great. If it goes to 170 tonight and then it falls back to 150 over the next couple of weeks because of August weakness, all right, whatever. So even if we get a pump, do we sustain that pump? No one knows. And if we get a dip, do people come in and buy that dip? I think so, but we don't know. But it's not Palantir at $20 where everyone's desperate for a move, or Palantir at $7 back in May of 2023 when we are just desperate to finally get out of the single digits. It's a totally different Palantir earnings. S&P high of day 629.50. Folks, we have now recovered exactly 75% of the loss that we had on Monday or Friday. So 630 maybe on the horizon for the S&P. And as a result, I'm just not worried about the price action for Palantir. I'm really not. I'm worried about, can the company live up to the massive expectations of growth that we have on them? The stock will do whatever the stock does. And that's what I care about when it comes to Palantir. Robinhood 103, baby. 103. There she goes. Very nice to see 103 on Hoodie. I had a post over the weekend of all the things people might have missed in terms of stats from Q2. Figma down 20%. And it's some pretty good stats. Prediction markets, 1 billion contracts, 300,000 gold card holders, 4 consecutive quarters of revenue growth for the gold card. Robinhood strategies, 100,000 accounts, 500 million AUM, 600,000 international customers. They bought back 700 million worth of shares at a $34 average, 3 million shares at 41. Margin book all-time highs at 9.5 billion, 13% gold adoption rate, 3.5 million gold subscribers. They're about 60% away from $1 trillion in assets, and Robinhood Banking is launching in the fall, which I think is going to be gigantic for the company, because once you get people's direct deposits, it's GG. I mean, now you have a steady stream of deposits constantly coming. I mean, Robinhood is doing what they're doing by just convincing people to literally open up the app and press deposit every month. And they're getting about $14 billion of deposits every quarter, which is insane, dude, for them to get about 15 billion bucks every 90 days. Now they're going to say, hey, if you work at a company, which most people that have a job get a bi-weekly paycheck, that can go directly into Robinhood. And as a result, you have a lot more money to invest. If it comes right into Robinhood, you take away the friction of people going to their bank account and then transferring the money. And then you can pay with Robinhood on the credit card, the debit card. You'll have lending services. You'll have the mortgage that they're introducing to people. I mean, there's just so many ancillary services they will be able to pile on banking as a product. And I think that could be very, very exciting for Robinhood going into the rest of the year. Elizabeth Warren is on CNBC. Let's see what Mrs. Warren is saying. And let's pull this up right here, and then we'll keep going from there.
To me, it was Zoran Mamdani. And that is, it's all about affordability. Remember, Donald Trump ran for office saying he would lower costs on day one. Cost of groceries are up, cost of housing is up, cost of healthcare is up. And where is Donald Trump? He's passing a signature bill to throw people off their healthcare so he can do tax cuts for billionaires. Democrats are the people who say billionaires actually should pay their fair share, and that we need to focus on affordability for American families. And that's what we're out there fighting for.
You mentioned Mamdani, and you are in New York, sort of speaking on behalf of him to a certain extent. I wonder, though, often we see this, and this is a local election. New York does not operate in a vacuum, and it competes with other cities. And so this idea of somehow raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, who, by the way, I would point out, pay roughly 15% of their income right now between city and state, raising taxes on them will simply drive them away. Shouldn't the focus of a mayor be on delivering services to the constituents of the city, and doing that by raising the most revenue as possible without chasing businesses and the high income taxpayers out of the city? Because they can go to Austin, they can go to Dallas, they can go to Atlanta, they can go to Nashville. This is your issue. It's a national issue, not a local issue.
The issue is affordability. Do you know how many working families are chased out of New York City every day because they can't afford housing, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford child care? What Zoran is saying is, I want people to be able to afford to live in New York City. That's what keeps it a vibrant city. That's what makes people want to live
Nobody
here.
disagrees with that, Senator, but raising taxes in order to do it?
Oh,
Why
my
is that
goodness.
the answer?
Oh, dear. Are you worried that billionaires are going to go hungry?
No, I'm worried that they're going to leave and spend their money elsewhere.
You know, they've threatened to do that over and over and over.
And they have. They've
But-
left.
But here's the thing.
And Goldman Sachs, when they create new jobs, they do it in Dallas. And
wanna
Blackstone won't build a new headquarters.
You
And go
wanna
on and
have-
on.
You want to have a workable city. You want to have a city that's vibrant. You want to have a city where the streets are full, where there are things for sale 24 hours a day. Then you need people who can live here and work
Well, we've
here.
got that right now,
Not
by the
people
way.
who
I
have
would
to
point
take
out
an
New
hour
York
and a
is
half
is thriving. So right
Well,
now it's doing pretty well, actually.
I'm glad you think they're doing well, because a lot of people are struggling to pay for housing. A lot of people are struggling to pay for groceries. And I got to tell you, mamas and daddies who are facing $25,000 a year to pay for childcare.
Those are national issues. I mean, I know they are the local state, but you can't.
New York City.
Yes, but if you deal with them in that way, by what is always your backup, just tax them more, they will leave.
No, the backup is make this city and make this country work for everyone. I get that the Republican point of view is make this country and make every city in this country work better and better for a handful of billionaires and let everybody else eat dirt. But what Mamdani won on in a Democratic primary is he said, I'm going to address affordability. And he didn't win by one
No,
vote.
he won by a lot. It's
He
very
won
much
by a
unclear he
lot.
has the ability to actually do it, by the way, based on the laws and what the governor has to say and what he would actually have to do.
You know, I love that as the fallback position, and that is he's fighting for the right thing, but maybe the billionaires will have a way
everybody
to block
wants a
him.
more affordable city. There's no doubt about
No,
that. The question
I
is how you go.
actually do
well, you
have
build,
a doubt about
you
that. The
build more
billionaires
housing.
sure want to pay their part on this.
You build more housing, you do try to make it more affordable, but it is a very difficult thing to do. You know that around the country. This is not an issue that just here in New York, it's everywhere.
But it's not an issue that Eric Adams was fighting for. It's certainly not an issue that Andrew Cuomo
I
was
think the
fighting
mayor
for.
would say they have been trying to focus on building as many new.
Mamdani is the one who said, I will make this a priority. And you know what he said? He said, I'm really going to lean in on childcare. I'm really going to lean in on housing. And I'm even going to try some new things to bring down the cost of
So it doesn't
groceries.
concern you that
I'm
he's
not going to sit around and pretend, oh, it's a federal problem. Let the federal
I mean,
government
you can
fix
you can
this.
say all these things, but again, I think many people would disagree to the extent that by raising taxes and making it more onerous for business that create the jobs, that create the revenues on which tax revenues come from, that you'd ultimately be dealing with a smaller pie. He may succeed by driving everybody out.
If
Rents
you
will go
think
down.
that the best way to run city government or national government is to start with the billionaires and say what will work best for you, vote Republican.
I don't think
But
anybody in
if
New York
you
is talking
don't-
about doing that.
If you don't, then let's make the city more affordable. Let's make the country more affordable. And the way we do that, let's focus on housing. Let's focus on groceries. Let's focus on childcare. Donald Trump
These are your
ran.
issues.
Donald,
These are national
Donald
issues.
Trump
You deal with
ran
that.
For all, and New York should just say, all we want is the
mayor of New
billionaires
York
pay
should
whatever
focus
you
on
want to
delivering
pay.
the most services to the citizens of
He
the
should
city and
focus-
make it a point of
I'm
improving
sorry,
life for
your
them.
fellow New Yorkers have said he should focus on affordability. This is why they have voted for Mamdani, and that's why today I will be here to talk about his plans on childcare, why people are talking about his plans. He's going to experiment to try to bring down grocery costs in food deserts. God bless him on that. He's going to try some things. When is the last time you saw America? I'm going to try something.
You think
for
somebody who
families,
has
and he's
absolutely no
gonna bring down-
experience, 33-year-old socialist, is going to succeed as the mayor of New York?
Yes, I
With
do.
no real
I
experience
think he's
whatsoever
going
in
to
city
do a
government?
lot more for working families than someone like Cuomo, who says, how many billions of dollars can we get into my campaign so that I can try to beat this guy back? Look, this is democracy.
All right, that's what you got. The Mamdani run of 2025 is going to be very important, I think, for everyone to keep their eyes on. November is when he will go for the official election. I mean, from the polling I saw over the weekend, Mamdani has an 81% chance of winning. Feels very unlikely that Cuomo or Eric Adams is going to beat him. Again, not everyone voted in the primaries, but this time you'll have closer to 9 million people getting a chance to vote for the general. I mean, even with the polling that I've seen, it seems like Mamdani is going to win. So what Warren is right about is that there is a sentiment in New York City that it's unaffordable. And Mamdani has tapped into that sentiment, and he's captured the imagination of people that believe that he can change it. What David Faber might have a point on is this guy actually going to be able to deliver on the promises? And when he gets elected, which in my opinion, he likely will be elected, we're going to see for the next 4 years if he can figure it out. But that will be the underlying debate. And we're going to see how it plays out. Wow, Trump just tweeted about Sydney Sweeney. Oh my goodness. Trump just tweeted about Sydney Sweeney. Is AEO green? American Eagle up even more. It's up 14%. Trump said, Sydney Sweeney, a registered Republican, has the hottest ad out there. It's for American Eagle and the jeans are flying off the shelves. Go get him, Sydney. On the other side of the ledger, Jaguar did a stupid and seriously woke advertisement that is a total disaster. The CEO just resigned in disgrace and the company is in absolute turmoil. Who wants to buy a Jaguar after looking at that disgraceful ad? Shouldn't they have learned a lesson from Bud Light, which went woke and essentially destroyed in short campaign the company? The market cap destruction has been so unprecedented with billions of dollars so foolishly lost. Or just look at the woke singer Taylor Swift. Ever since I alerted the world as to what she was by saying on Truth that I can't stand her, she was booed out of the Super Bowl and became no longer hot. The tide has seriously turned. Being woke is for losers. Being Republican is what you want to be. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Dude, we are really... Oh, and then we got a Warren tweet. Elizabeth Warren is a capital loser. She lies about everything, including the fact that she is an Indian. She is not Indian. She is no Pocahontas. Dude, we're really living... we are living through the president of the United States saying Taylor Swift is not hot and Elizabeth Warren is a loser. Oh, we got another tweet. In just 6 months, I cut costs, especially energy and taxes, tremendously. Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren on CNBC said costs have gone up. She is just angry that I blew up her terrible presidential campaign. Call her out. He's the content in chief, bro. He's the content in chief. You better enjoy it now, because in 4 years, we're not going to have... I mean, I don't think J.D. Vance or Gavin Newsom, whoever becomes president, is going to be this type of content creator. They're definitely not going to stream live as many times Trump goes live. But he's the content in chief. He's watching CNBC 100. Dude, Trump watches CNBC every morning to try to see what the business community is saying about him. He obviously cares about the market a lot, even though they say they don't look at the market. And yeah, he produces content via live stream and via his posts on Twitter every single day based on what he's seeing. The one thing I will say about Trump is that you never have to wonder how he's feeling, because he will tell you, and he goes live like 10 times a week. So he answers so many questions per day. I don't know if there's been another president that has taken as many questions as he takes every day, like consistently, outside of on the weekend. And before he goes on Air Force One, he'll take 20 minutes of questions. He's just constantly there. He constantly wants to be in the headlines. And I don't know if we're going to have another president that's ever like that. Wow, Amazon 212. They took her down to 212. Fubo's up 7. Figma's down 20. Kind of expected Figma to go down. And then the S&P high of day, 629.30. 629.30. Trump loves amidst eyebrows. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Dude, you guys always comment about my eyebrows. Are they that nice or something? Like, it's just, my barber just shapes them up while he's doing my beard. I don't know you guys care that much, but every day you comment on my eyebrows. Yes, my dad did sell his Figma at 135. He was going to hold on though, bro. And I just told him, I was like, Dad, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, you don't even know what the hell Figma is. You got lucky with 19 shares. If I were you, I would take the money. And then he thought about it for a little bit and then he sold. And I'm pretty sure he's happy now that he sold, but it's like, if I were you, I would have taken the money. My mom, though, she played Hood so good on Friday. I think I told you guys. She bought back her 120 August 15 calls when Hood was 93. So she paid 12 cents on the dollar to get those calls back. And then she sold 107s expiring that day when Hood was 103. So she bought back the bottom. She sold the top. And then obviously Hood didn't get to 107 on Friday. So she collected like $250 of premium just for a couple hours of Hood staying below 107. So not too bad. but there's been a lot of volatility to take advantage of in the midst of the spread. Now, the thing is, even with all the volatility we had on Friday, I mean, what was the worst pain? 93 on Hood, Grab 478, AMD 167, like Palantir 152. Is that the max pain that we're going to get in August? Because if it is, then I think, we'd be pretty happy with that. But if it's not, then we just might have some more momentum to the downside that's waiting for us towards the end of August. And I think obviously NVIDIA will decide that. The jobs growth will decide that. The labor market will decide that. You'll have a lot of stuff kind of give you an indication of how bad it could get. But if that is the max amount of pain, I don't think people are going to be that upset. Here is the professor, Jeremy Siegel, talking about some of these job numbers and what he thinks the Fed should do as well.
Acceptable today. We need that response rate has to go up. And when you make the biggest mistake in 50 years, why? Why wasn't there an explanation? I mean, who's reporting wrong and why? And, there was no, transparency there. And I'm not going to try to justify the firing or not. But, in this world of the internet and instantaneous response, this idea of reports coming in weeks late, I think is just totally unacceptable. And it changed monetary policy. I mean, I definitely think there would have been a rate cut at the July meeting had we known the numbers were as weak as it was. And, I think, I know one of your past, we're talking about inversion of the term structure. I measure from Fed funds to the 10-year, and it's inverted. And normally the Fed funds is 120 basis points below the 10-year. And that definitely argues for lower than, 4.33%. So they need to move on this.
That's interesting. So I'm wondering whether you can ever expect a sort of a government-run entity to get it together, or you couldn't do this. I mean, we do have some private data from ADP.
Let's get a little coverage right here on Tesla. So again, basically Jeremy Siegel saying, hey, we would have cut in July if we knew these numbers. I think JPOW would have cut if we had a 250,000 job provision in July, which means maybe we get 50 bips going in September.
Essentially a down payment on a 2018 compensation plan that has yet to go into effect because it's been held up by the courts in Delaware. And it was the delay in at least getting the Supreme Court of Delaware to rule on Chancellor McCormick's ruling invalidating that same pay plan that has frustrated the board to the extent that they wanted to at least give Mr. Musk something and do it sooner than waiting. Now, it doesn't mean that they aren't still respecting the courts there and very much focused on what will happen. But as of today, he's got 96 million shares. Same exercise price is under the 2018 plan, and the value about $26.8 billion. Now, if you recall, it's that 2018 plan that had what seemed to be at the time audacious, perhaps not even the right word. I mean, just targets for the stock price and market cap that seemed impossible, but were ultimately met. And that resulted in an enormous payday for Mr. Musk. I mean, one that the likes of which we've never seen ever in the recorded history of man. That said, Chancellor McCormick in Delaware had an issue with it, saying the board had, or he had undue influence over the board. She rejected it. They put it back to shareholders. I think it was last June. They voted in favor of it yet again at a 70% rate. And McCormick said no again. Hence, we were waiting for the appeal of that in the Delaware Supreme Court. And so that's where we stand right now in terms of at least saying to Musk, hey, we're giving you something. And by the way, if they do rule against the pay plan again, or they uphold her decision, they're going to figure something out. Not to mention, they've got an annual meeting coming up in November. And in September, we're going to get a proxy on a new comp plan for Musk that obviously is for the future.
Yeah, even though, I mean, huge question. He owns 13% of the company. Kind of where's he going if he's not incented this way is one question. But it also shows you there's hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap in Tesla. That is basically his ability to keep the ball in the air and keep the excitement moving because the business is not. supportive of a $1 trillion
As you well know, Mike,
Yeah.
it's robo-taxis and
Yeah.
robotics now that
Yeah.
are getting people excited, and they obviously want him to be there to deliver on what they.
Well, Elon got paid today. Question now is what happens to Tesla? Tesla goes not red yet, but it's losing a lot of its pump. Again, my assumption around Tesla is that this thing will be range bound until minimum second half of 2026. That doesn't mean it's going to stay stuck at 305, but it'll have some peaks and valleys because until they get earnings growth, I think the market is going to be a little bit a little scared of Tesla. And by the way, the market's not scared because they're giving them $1 trillion valuation, but for that to get to 2 trillion, 3 trillion, you need earnings. And right now, Tesla does not have it yet. But eventually they will. It just might take some time, which is why I do think this is accumulation phase for Tesla. Reddit right here, 196. That's up 4. Spotty up 6.5. Microsoft up 2. Coinbase goes green. And then Hoodie just under 103. So you're starting to see the highs of the days get some red candles, which is fair. S&P probably is also down. Yeah, 628.90 from 629.53. But at least holding up 1%. The company called Bullish that is IPOing is Peter Thiel's company. I don't know when they go public. Is it this week that they go public? But it's like a bank. It's a $4.2 billion valuation. It's a crypto exchange / it has banking activities, but majority of it is a crypto exchange. And it's going to go public at a $4.2 billion valuation. The fact that the ticker is like BLSH, meaning bullish, I mean, I think that in and of itself could be a little memeish for Wall Street Bets. But that's something we're going to look at this week as well. Elon is not selling Tesla because he's not allowed to sell his shares for 5 years. So you're likely not going to see any selling of Tesla coming from Elon himself. Grab 494, Hoodie 102, Palantir we at 160. We're just below 160, 159.25. On the pump or dump, again, 60-40. 60% of you say pump on Palantir. 40% say dump. So after the bell, we're going to see. I think the implied move, if I'm not wrong, let me check, is about 10%. That's what it tends to be on Palantir. Yeah, it's about 10%. 10, yeah, basically 10%. Yeah, so, all right, so, actually, no, 12%. 12% is the implied move on Palantir. All right, so we're going to see. Yeah, it was 20. Yeah, that's correct. It was 20% last time. And I think we dumped like 10%. We didn't dump full on 20%, but we did get a little bit of red after the call. Palantir right there, 159.29. AMD 176, Uber 87. I mean, the things that are red are kind of weird. Amazon's red. Is all the Mag 7 red? But a lot of other stuff is green. No, Amazon's the only Mag. See, that doesn't make sense to me. Tesla's green, Nvidia's green, Meta, Apple, Microsoft. Microsoft's up 2%. Meta's up almost 2%. Google's up 3%. Why is the street pissed off about Amazon? Like, I don't think there should be a fundamental reason. And AWS growth is not abhorrent to the point where you would get that mad. Now, Amazon's operating margins did go down a little bit, 11.8 to 11.4. Again, I don't know if that's why you take this thing down 9%. 212 right here on Amazon. I think Steve's working on an article for Amazon soon, so that'll be coming out. And he will give his take. He is obviously pretty bullish. We got Stacy on CNBC. All right, let's pull him up. This is one of Bernstein's best analysts when it comes to semiconductors. And we will see what he has to say. All right, so let's pull this up.
Semis has frankly been kind of lackluster, right? I mean, and then there's been concerns, even where we have seen some strength, that maybe it could be pull forward in front of tariffs or anything else. And we've heard that dreaded P word, on a number of calls, frankly. And whenever we hear it, people tend to get a little nervous. PCs, like end demand for PCs has been relatively strong, but again, I think that pull forward is very real there. I think within the analogs, the auto and the industrial, like a lot of them are at least calling for a cyclical bottom and maybe for a return to growth and a recovery. But at the same time, you worry, like, is it sustainable? Is it anything more than just inventory filling? And again, is it being driven maybe by pre-purchases in front of tariffs? There's a lot of uncertainty out there. The AI like spending at least seems to be a little more certain at this point.
And when it comes to AMD, I mean, yeah, obviously most of the chip companies that can have tried to sort of recast themselves as those with leverage to the AI spending trend. I know you know it's had a great run in the stock, and maybe you think it's overdone since you're sort of at a hold on it. But what's the setup there?
Yeah, and again, I always cautious by saying like I tend to miss AMD on the upside anyways. It's not uncommon for me. The stock has been very strong. I kind of get it. I mean, again, they are levered in some sense to the AI trade. They do have products. There's some demand. You know, supposedly they're getting their China licenses back. Supposedly, if they do, that may drive some upside in the near term. And as I've said, it's you can kind of dream on AMD right now. Like the real story for AMD's AI is actually next year. It's the MI450. That's their first rack scale offering. It's the first one that, at least on paper, gets them more competitive with NVIDIA. And it doesn't come for over a year. So like right now, you know, it can be as big as you want. I'm starting to hear from investors some fairly, you know, elevated expectations for AMD's AI trajectory into next year and the year beyond. And so we'll see if they can, support that or not once we get there. But, you know, right now you've got time to sort of dream about it. And in the near term, I mean, like I said, they get some upside maybe from China. PCs look okay. They're still taking tons of share across like servers and things from AMD, from Intel, which helps to support. So I kind of get it. At the same time, though, I would say expectations, I think just given the stock performance and, you know, some of our conversations, expectations have risen quite a bit. Like they better do pretty well, like when they report tomorrow.
If those dreams were to come true about AMD next year, does it come at the expense of NVIDIA or Broadcom, or just, you know, are the numbers not big enough for that to happen? Because those stocks don't look like they're positioned.
The numbers probably aren't big enough. And frankly, that's also part of the AMD bull case, right? Is like AMD doesn't have to do $200 billion of AI revenue. Like the bull case is something like, you know, Lisa said it's a $500 billion TAM, and if they just get 5%, which would be $25 billion, I mean, that's enough. And for like NVIDIA, that clearly wouldn't be nearly enough. But for AMD, that for now, that would probably be fine. Every $1 billion of AI revenue for them is roughly 25 cents in earnings. So you could get high earnings power if you think that they have line of sight to something like that. And frankly, right now, I don't think the AI market is mature or saturated. And again, the idea that there's enough to go around, it's not an implausible like kind of thing to believe right now.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Stacy on AMD and the growth they've got to put up in order to maintain their momentum. Trump just tweeted about India. Trump says India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchase, selling it on the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the USA. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, Trump versus India. There you go. It is in full effect. Trump versus India. Where are the energy stocks? XLE is up a little bit right there. Oil prices, is that making a move? Oil is down 2% on the day, even with Trump tweeting that. I mean, look, he's negotiating, right? They're trying to get a deal. I'm sure Trump doesn't want India to literally just never buy Russian oil. He knows that's not possible. But if he puts the pressure on them by saying, hey, you guys are funding the war in Ukraine, you guys are responsible for yada, yada. By the way, the United States is also responsible for a lot of shit, right? So it's like, it's not just India's fault here. But that public pressure can maybe get them to the table and accept some terms that are a bit more friendly towards the United States. I don't think it's serious, though. I mean, Trump, he became super aggressive with the UK before a deal. He became super aggressive with the EU before the deal, but he became super aggressive with Japan and South Korea, sent them a letter saying they're going to have to pay 35% before a deal. He is doing the same with India. And I think India wants to get a deal done eventually as well because they don't want to stay stuck dealing with massive amounts of tariffs. But I think there will be a deal, dude. I don't think India wants to be on the bad side of the U.S. and have to pay a ridiculous amount of tariffs. Now, granted, we don't do as much trade with India as we do with some of the other countries, so maybe India is able to hold out for longer. But I would be surprised if by September, October, we don't have a deal with India. Like, it just seems inevitable that they would want to get something done as well. But again, the reason why India is buying from Russia is because they got 1.4 billion people. They got a lot of oil, or they got a lot of people that they need energy for. And Russia has a lot of cheap energy. And, you know, I don't think India agrees with Russia on the philosophical sense on everything that they're doing. But at the end of the day, right, like, you need energy. Energy is not easy to get. And if you can get it for cheap, you know, that may be something strategic for them that they have to focus on as well. So you can understand both perspectives, but the question is, you know, how does this end up playing out for Trump? Modi replied. Did Modi tweet back? Let's see. Modi's big on Twitter too. He tends to voice his opinion as well. Okay, I don't see any tweet yet, but I imagine he will respond. Again, Modi is, people in India love this guy. He has 108 million followers on Twitter. I'm not that deep into Indian politics, so I don't know all the nuances about him, but I mean, either you love him or you hate him in India. And I think in India, there's a lot more people that love him versus hate him. So he definitely has the support of the people when it comes to being able to convince the trajectory that they want to go on. Now, Apple's probably slipping on this news because Apple is now producing 17% of iPhones in India. It's down a little bit from 208, still up 2% on the day. But that is definitely not the best thing for Apple if China and India both are in trade wars with the United States. Let me pull up the stock draft and see how we're doing on that. Everyone took a little bit of a haircut last week on that stock draft. Okay, so Matt's up 12, Tanner's up 7.4. Oh, wow, I finally beat Tanner. I'm number 2, baby. Tanner's 7.41, Matt's 12.7. I am 7.42. I'm beating Tanner by 0.1, which can change any second, but still. Steve's up 1.63 and Chris is down 3.1. Obviously, Novo and UNH have been tough for Chris, and so that's why he's down 3.1. All right, folks, we're beating Tanner. Beating Tanner by 0.1. Matt's at 12, so Matt obviously is still in the lead. But we got Tanner. And if I didn't have Duolingo, 0.01. Sorry, 0.01. No, yeah, 0.1. Dude, it's like when a company beats on earnings, right? 0.01, they got their beat. I got 0.01. But if I didn't have freaking Duolingo, I would be objectively number 2. If I picked anything that didn't fall 30%, which shouldn't be that hard. Shouldn't be that hard to pick a stock that doesn't fall 30%. I would be number 2. So if this one gives me anything, if this owl on Thursday or Wednesday they report, if they give me any juice, we can make some movement. But Duolingo's gotta deliver something. Rutgers math. Who has coin? Tanner has coin, but he has it a good average. Tanner is still up on coin. He's up 21%. He got coin at 261. So although it's down a lot, he's still up a decent amount on Coinbase. This is a pressure play on China as much as it is India. I agreed, 100%. I think we will get a deal with India. I do not think it is going to be some antagonistic confrontational relationship over the next 4 years. Like, Trump and Modi like each other. They're friends. Like, I think Modi likes Trump way more than he likes Biden. But ultimately, we just got to get this deal done. We're going to see. We're going to see how this ends up playing out. All right, so what other news headlines do we have? We looked at pretty much everything on the day. How is it already 11 a.m., bro? How many hours has it been? 2 hours, dude. Feels like the market's just opening. In terms of other news updates, Boeing, you have a strike. 3,000 fighter jet workers are going on strike on Boeing. The last time they had a strike was back in 2024, so Boeing right there down about 0.5%. They're going to have to deal with that strike. S&P still 629, Hoodie 102, American Eagle now up 16% based on the Trump endorsement of Sydney Sweeney. So that's green. The Trump tweet was the Russian oil tweet, guys. There wasn't a new tweet. Last tweet that he had was the India-Russian oil tweet. So you got American Eagle getting some green. Oh, the BLS for the Goldman Sachs report. So Goldman Sachs came out and they said, hey, Trump's firing of the BLS will be negative for the dollar. The dollar extended Friday's losses as markets increasingly expect a September rate cut. Goldman Sachs says Trump's move to replace the BLS chief could hurt confidence in U.S. policy, prompting investors to rethink safe haven strategies. Goldman expects the dollar to weaken further, especially against the yen. I think Goldman's right about this to an extent, even if investors have a little bit of perceived weakness of the US dollar being a safe haven trade because of the BLS commissioner being replaced. Where else are you going to go? And yeah, sure, there's other places to theoretically go to, but realistically, with the dollar trading at these levels, you're either going to buy US stocks or you're going to buy the US dollar. So this whole people are going to leave the US from the dollar. Well, when the dollar was at 115 in January, people have left. It's at 98. To imagine this thing would go to like the low 90s, I think is very hard to imagine. I don't think Trump would let it get to the low 90s. So even with the BLS replacement, I think the dollar should be okay. Palantir at their 158, and then Apple is at 207. Do we have a headline on Amazon? Amazon is reportedly expanding its online car shopping platform to include used and certified pre-owned vehicles. Has anyone ever bought a car on Amazon? Amazon sells cars, Amazon Autos, that's a thing. That's a thing. I've never known that, dude. Amazon Autos, look at this. Has anyone ever seen this? I've never seen this. I wonder how long this thing has been out. Amazon Autos. I recently sold one of my old cars to CarMax like a month ago. And I think we got a pretty good deal on it. I mean, I imagine what Amazon would have paid for it. That's pretty incredible. Amazon Autos. Dude, this is why it's hard to be bearish Amazon over the next decade. Like, they are not slowing down, and they're going to be there in every part of our lives. Along with, obviously, AWS getting continued momentum via AI. Yeah, we talked about this last week. ChatGPT is hitting 700 million weekly users. ChatGPT is also raising at a $300 billion valuation, and Anthropic is raising at a $170 billion valuation. By the way, the Anthropic CEO did a podcast, and here's what he had to say about what Mark Zuckerberg is doing when it comes to stealing talent.
Rough range of the size of data centers that they built.
You talked about talent density. What do you think about what Mark Zuckerberg is doing on the talent density front? I mean, combining that with these massive data centers, it seems like he's going to be able to compete.
Yeah, so this is actually very interesting because one thing we noticed is that relative to other companies, I think very a lot fewer people from Anthropic have been caught by these, and it's not for lack of trying. I've talked to plenty of people who got these offers at Anthropic and who just turned them down, who wouldn't even talk to Mark Zuckerberg, who said, no, I'm staying at Anthropic. And our general response to this was, I posted something to the whole company Slack where I said, look, we are not willing to compromise our compensation principles, our principles of fairness to respond individually to these offers. The way things work at Anthropic is there's a series of levels. When candidate comes in, they get assigned a level, and we don't negotiate that level because we think it's unfair. We want to have a systematic way. If Mark Zuckerberg, throws a dart at a dartboard and hits your name, that doesn't mean that you should be paid 10 times more than the guy next to you who's just as skilled, who's just as talented. And my view of the situation is that, the only way you can really be hurt by this is if you allow it to destroy the culture of your company by panicking, by treating people unfairly in an attempt to defend the company. And I think actually this was a unifying moment for the company where, we didn't give in. We refused to compromise our principles because we had the confidence that people are Anthropic because they truly believe in the mission. I think that gets to kind of how I see this. I think that what they are doing is trying to buy something that cannot be bought. And that is alignment with the mission. And
so that is an interesting question, right? And let's ask this right here in the chat. Will Meta be successful with buying talent? And how do you determine success? Will they have one of the best models that's out there that people actually want to buy or that people want to use? That is the question. Because we talked a lot about Zuck's poaching talent, but we really haven't had the conversation of, will that work? Like, it's super bullish for NVIDIA and AMD and the broader AI trade because Zuck is willing to spend so much money. But will it actually work? Will he get people to not use the current day models as much as the new breakthroughs in the models that his researchers come up with because they're being paid so much money that you would think they would come up with breakthroughs? And would that shift consumer behavior? That is the question. 72% of you guys say yes. 72% of you guys say yes. I think the first mover advantage of ChatGPT, even Grok or Gemini, has not been able to crack that. So obviously that's going to be hard. But I don't necessarily know if Zuck wants to go for the full-on consumer chatbot game. Maybe there's a deeper story to what he's thinking of doing with this talent that we don't know about. And that's where the talent is more prudent than just on making a chatbot even better. But the fact that he has the talent and he has all the GPUs and he has all the data centers to do it, robbing it back above 103, it's hard to be super bearish against that, as long as they continue to, actually make breakthroughs inside of their models. And the thing is, the talent he's getting, these are people that like designed the reasoning model of GPT-4, and O1. Like, these are people that were instrumental in building the breakthroughs that we saw a year and a half ago. So he's getting some really top tier talent, which is why he's paying so much. The question is, can they replicate that in Meta? Buying talent is a sports move. Yes, that is also true. This is what sports teams with fat pockets tend to do as well. I don't think it's just for ads either, dude. Like, I know Meta's crushing it on ads, right? They're bringing like basically $50 billion a quarter on ads, and they don't have the threat of blue links. I mean, this is why I think Meta is getting a better multiple than Google. Google has the threat of blue links, even though search is not dead, right? Based on the numbers that we saw. But the perception that search could die is, I think, an overhang on Google. Facebook and Instagram are not dying. Now, I don't use Facebook anymore. I scroll through Instagram occasionally. But a majority of the world, literally half, 4 billion people every day use Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is just starting to get monetized. By the way, Threads, which is at, I think, 300 million monthly actives, is also getting monetized now as well. So, and it doesn't seem like people are going to stop using those products. Even though I know a lot of us in the United States don't use Facebook anymore because, like, we've kind of grown out of it, and maybe it's a little bit more for older people that do use it. But across the world, like, people use Facebook for their news the way we would use a regular website that we enjoy going to. So, like, in certain underdeveloped parts of the world, it's Facebook or nothing. And as a result, there's a lot of user growth that they can still get in those areas. And then in the United States, if you are using Facebook and you're older, you tend to have more money. So if you see an ad, you can buy something from that ad, and that ad can convert for the advertiser, which is why they continue to pay Facebook. Let's do that, chat. 74% of you say Meta will be successful. Let's do that poll. Do you use Facebook? When I mean use Facebook, I mean every day. Do you check Facebook? Do you check Facebook? I checked it like 2 days ago, and I was like, wow, I don't think I've been on this for like a month. It's been a long time. Zuck is obsessed with beating out Apple. Now, look, this is the part where I disagree with a lot of the Meta shareholders, and they get mad at me, but I don't think the glasses thing is going to work. I'm sorry, I just don't. I would love to be proven wrong. I'm not short Meta. If Zuck pulls it off, then that's a huge new S curve that can create tons and tons of momentum, probably more demand for NVIDIA, etc. I just don't think billions of people are going to wear glasses that are AI centered. Like, I just don't see that happening. But I still think Meta is going to be a very, very big company without glasses succeeding. Now, if they end up making glasses the next computing ecosystem and they dethrone the iPhone, even if it takes 10 years, I mean, this stock is going a lot higher because Apple right now still is doing about 45 billion every quarter on the iPhone. If that starts to go down and Zuck starts to do 10, 20 billion on glasses, again, at least 3-4 years away, if we even think that could happen. But if it does happen, that would be a big deal. That would be a big deal. 62% of you say no. So there's still 40% of you that use Facebook every day. 40% of you that use Facebook every day. That's what Zuck's is spending on. All this talent is going to lead to personal superintelligence, aka Jarvis. So I think that is a fair thing to go after. I disagree with the form factor of that superintelligence being in glasses. I just don't think that's going to work. I think superintelligence as like a application on your phone or an agentic workflow inside of your browser has a use case. In a robot has a use case. In your glasses, I don't see it, dude. I do not see it. Literally and metaphorically, I don't see it. So if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. S&P basically at highs of the day, 629.38. I think they'll sell some glasses. Will they replace the phone as the main computing factor via glasses? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't think they need to do that to happen for it to do well. Yo, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, dude. I've been on an island with this take for a long time. I don't see, as someone who wears glasses every day, I still don't think that's going to work. But who knows? Maybe if they come up with the glasses that's like so amazing to wear and then it's like easy to talk to it and I don't need to check my phone, maybe it works. But I really don't think people are going to do that. I think he's going to chase operational efficiency with R&D and massively increase efficiency of running his business stack. Yeah, that's just like a margin improvement argument, right? Make it happen. We're seeing it across the board. And the fact that, people have been saying like, what is Zuck spending all this money on? Just getting ads to be more targeted. And it's like, yeah, all the GPUs that they bought for the metaverse, they switched that to their core business, which is advertising. And the ads have just gotten better and better and better and better and better. Literally the other day, me and my mom were talking about something. And then I think she was talking about traveling. And then she got an ad on Instagram for a suitcase. She didn't search it. She was like just talking to me about traveling. And then boom, she gets a suitcase ad. And it's like, they know. They know everything. They know everything. Hoodie is 10 cents away from 104. Let me see the resistance at 104. Robinhood getting some momentum. 104, we have never mind. We just cracked it. There you go. 104. Never mind. Okay. Boom. 104. No resistance on Hoodie. Why is the firm up 7%? I have no idea. They don't have earnings for like another week or two. So there's got to be some news. Let me see if there's anything with buy now, pay later. But 7% is a pretty big move for a firm. Looks technical. I see zero news on a firm. Looks technical. I mean, I guess this chart that came out a week ago, you could argue for the industry itself is bullish. Higher income households grew the most across the BNPL user classifications. So you have more people that are using buy now, pay later, which is a firm's core business that have more income, which is good because they're likely going to pay it back. But it doesn't seem like there's any sort of fundamental reason. Firm right there up 7.4. Duolingo's up 2, and then Apple is up 2 as well. Would you buy Palantir or Hims before earnings? I am not. I did that last time. I bought at 125. I'm not going to be buying either before earnings. I mean, again, dude, the stocks, both of them have just run up a lot. Like, I really hope people don't go crazy if the stock goes down because they know, or they should know, that the stock has gone up a lot. Like, it's just that simple. If you're in this for the long term, stocks will go up, it will go down. If there's a thesis breaker in the quarter, aka a real red flag, then we'll talk about it. We'll have that conversation and we'll discuss why that took Palantir down. If it's a great quarter, but it's just not good enough to keep the stock up or to expand the multiple, then like it is what it is. We have to be a little humble to recognize how amazing of a year it's been. And this stuff happens. We saw that with Hood. Hood absolutely crushed. Google crushed. And, Google has their own issues in terms of narrative. Hood, the stock price was just up a lot. Now breaking 104 a little bit, but it couldn't break 111, 112, 115, even though it tried to get there on the earnings pump because it's up a lot. You need new money to come in, and new money might just not want to come in at these levels, which I don't think is the craziest thing in the world. What are potential catalysts for Grab? So Grab still has not told us what they're going to do with their cash pile. And it would not surprise me in the next 90 days if they announce a major acquisition and the deployment of that cash. Maybe they don't do it till next year. I don't know. But that would be the major catalyst. They wake up one morning and they say, hey, we bought XYZ company. Our market share is strengthened in XYZ region. And the earnings guidance likely goes up because of that, which is what I expect to happen. And I think management has basically hinted at that. It's just we don't know if that's going to happen or when that's going to happen. And so we're going to have to see over the next few months. What if Palantir earnings are great? So I think a great earnings would be 955 to 960 million. I think a phenomenal earnings would be around 970 million. I think a holy crap type of quarter, like they blew it out of the park, is $1 billion. And if you get to the phenomenal slash, hit it out of the park type of quarter, so 970 million to $1 billion, I think the stock really could go up. I said that last night. I think in the face of valuation being aggressive, the market will still expand the multiple if Palantir is growing the way they're growing. But they got to deliver that growth. And do I expect them to put up $1 billion in revenue? No. Would it surprise me? No. Which is why it's hard to make a price prediction on Palantir going into this quarter. But given everything we've seen, again, Arnie had a great post this morning about all the different catalysts. My number one thing that I'm concerned about, two things, is customer count and then international growth. Those are the major things that I'm curious about. Can they end up pulling up those results that are going to be necessary to see? And if they can, I think we'll see momentum, but that is the most important thing that we have to look at. Why don't you expect them making $1 billion? It's not that I don't expect them to. I just don't want to put the pressure on them to put up $1 billion, right? Like they guided for 940. I think even if they got to 970, that's a $30 million beat. That's pretty damn good. So to say they're going to beat by 70 million, I think that's just asking a lot. In some respect, it's not asking a lot, but in another respect, it's like, well, they didn't guide for that. So why would I put that pressure on them? I would just be pleasantly surprised if they do it. But Q3, obviously they will do $1 billion in revenue. Like that's inevitable. It's just Q2. Do they want to make this a quarter where they beat and get there? We're going to have to see. Batty says, I think we get $1 billion, but I don't know how when government contracts payouts that can impact each quarter. Yeah, and government contracts tend to be lumpy, and Q3, Q4 is when they tend to show the revenue versus Q2. Q2 tends to be a dead quarter for government. So that might be another reason why we don't get that billion number this quarter. Now, if they come in at 1.2 or 1.3 billion or some ridiculous NVIDIA type of quarter, we're going higher. We are going much higher. I don't expect it, but if we do, it would be massive. It would be massive. Doug says, bro, they really let us buy Hood at 93 last week. Yeah, I mean, look, that 93 dip was kind of funny because the entire... See, this is the thing. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, Hood and Palantir will have a dip and, they're overvalued, bubbly, etc. The only dips that Hood and Palantir have had all year have been with the market. The market falls 2%. Okay, Hood and Palantir fall 10%. But outside of that, maybe it's a little bit of an earnings dip as well after the quarter, but then that tends to recover. Like these two names have not had some dramatic, scary dip outside of the market. Same thing with Tesla. I mean, Tesla realistically fell in March back to 220 when the market was tanking. So since then, Tesla's had little 5-7% moves up or down, but it's not like Tesla's had some massive 20-30% drop outside of the market. Which tends to tell me, these individual names are trading with the market and the market wants to keep them elevated and not independently go down against the market if the overall macro environment is stable. Wayfair, by the way, up 10.75%, which is a good thing for shareholders because that means you get to see, a lot more momentum on these names independent of what the broader market is doing. Let's get a little bit of coverage on some of this Fed stuff and labor market, and then we'll keep going from there.
Are real and signal a slowdown. JP Morgan writing the broad message from this week's news is that trend growth is slowing, and that's followed by Citi that said large down revisions to prior payrolls growth hadn't, and a renewed rise in the unemployment rate confirm our long-held view that a softening labor market will lead the Fed to cut policy rates. And the futures market, the Fed funds futures market trading just like those numbers are real and not political. Adding a third expected rate cut from the Fed this year, you can see that the third one is new. We have been trading with high probabilities of just two. Now a third is added. Why are these big revisions? Hasn't talked about it. Well, there are, in fact, lower response rates since the pandemic. Smaller companies especially may be reporting later right now they could be losing workers because they are the hardest hit by the tariffs. Immigration and deportation have been changing the workforce, messing around with some of the seasonals perhaps. And of course, there have been BLS cutbacks this year due to administration actions. In an interview, former BLS Commissioner Erica Grosjean said the jobs report is compiled by hundreds of people and is extremely automated in the last stages. So the BLS Commissioner has no opportunity to alter the numbers. Grosjean is part of a broad group of economists roundly criticizing the president's assertion that the numbers were, quote, rigged. Friends of BLF said in a statement, this rationale for firing Dr. McIntyre is without merit and undermines the credibility of federal economic statistics that are a cornerstone of intelligent economic decision-making by businesses, families, and policymakers. The White House declining to provide any evidence that the data was altered for political reasons, instead pointing to big revisions. But those revisions show no political bias, including, Leslie, as you remember, an 818,000 downward revision in August of 2024, 3 months before the election.
Right. The revisions appear to be political party agnostic. Steve, thank you very much.
With this new BLS commissioner, we're going to see if it actually changes the job numbers, but I think Trump will announce it in like the next couple of days, and then we'll see who's running the BLS and if the methodology changes at all. Robinhood right here, 103.90, Tesla 306, Grab 498, trying to get to 5, and then Palantir 158. I'll check resistance for Grab at 5. Someone asked, should we sell covered calls on Grab? I wouldn't. I just don't think it makes sense right here. You're kind of looking for a very small amount of premium for a stock that I think is likely, fair value at least is around the 530, 540 range, whereas its intrinsic value is more so 750. But if it stays range bound and you just keep rolling the calls every week, then yeah, you could collect maybe 10, 20 cents per share on Grab every week. $5 resistance has 53,000 shares. 53,000 shares for Grab at $5. Did he also say later right now? Did he say that? Dude, this currently right now trend, it's catching on to the world. It's catching on to the world. I really need to make a shirt that says it, and I'm just going to wear it. And I think that's a good name for a podcast currently right now. Steve and I have to start a podcast called Currently Right Now. He said later right now. Also, currently right now is kind of like it's a vibe, right? Because it's like, hey, if you want to chase after your dreams, you want to go for it, you do it currently right now. Not just right now, but currently. It double emphasizes the necessity to engage in what is something that should be urgent with your life, aka the chasing of the dream currently right now. I think it's a thing. I put up the video over the weekend on Twitter, and I think Vlad, when he's looking through the comments, he's like, what the hell are these guys spamming CRN for? Because all of you guys in the comments on the Robinhood video are like, currently right now. And I think he's realizing there's a little bit of a message here to CRN, but he's recognized it. By the way, I didn't tell you guys. So for those that don't know, when I met Vlad at the headquarters in California back in February after the Q1 earnings, or the Q4 2024 earnings, I gave him my little bell, one of those little bells that I give away at the giveaways to everybody, and he gave me a gavel in exchange for that. So we exchanged gifts. And for those that don't know the story, the TLDR is that the gavel is basically Vlad describes it as when he has all hands on meetings, he'll slam the gavel on the table to basically get everyone to be focused on hitting their goals. And it's basically this idea of him being very focused in those meetings. It's hey, we have to get these number of users. We have to get these number of gold subscribers, yada, yada. And so whoever he's talking to, he'll slam the gavel on the table during their meeting to kind of initiate that focus of we have to win no matter what, right? And so there's a lot of sentimental value towards it. And the freaking TSA nuked my gavel. They took it away from me when I was coming back from California, and I couldn't do anything about it. They thought I was going to like kill the pilot with my gavel, with a plastic gavel for some reason. Well, when I was talking to Vlad at the earnings in New York, he was like, I still have your little bell that you gave to me and it's on my desk. And I'm like, yeah, about that. So the gavel, and he was like, yeah, what happened to that? I haven't seen any gavel on the show. I haven't seen you tweet about the gavel. I haven't seen the gavel pop up anywhere. I was like, well, the TSA took it. He was like, what? See, I was like, yeah, bro, they took it. He was like, damn. He's like, I would have sent someone over to like take the gavel to send it to you. I was like, yeah, dude, they took this shit. So yeah, he was sad about it as well. I was trying to tell TSA they're sentimental. Dude, I really argued with them for 20 minutes. Not 20 minutes, more like 10 minutes. Because at some point I'm like, I can't keep arguing with these guys. They're gonna actually think I'm trying to use the gavel as a weapon or something. So I was like, all right, guys, whatever. You can take it. But yeah, he still has the bell. And I don't have the gavel. But it goes to show that, Vlad keeps up with everything. He watches, he observes, he's on Twitter, he's seeing the clips. Like, he has a pulse of what the community is doing. By the way, I believe Alex Karp is the same. I think Alex Karp sees everything, dude. I think if you're a Elon obviously is the same. Elon's on Twitter all day. Like, these hyper-focused founders are trying to get a sense of how people are perceiving their company. And I think that's what makes them better founders, because they can speak to the needs of their shareholders, which are some of the most important shareholders, retail, by actually listening to them and caring about them and watching the stuff they put out, and seeing their tweets. So I think these guys deeply, deeply care about kind of what's going on and the content that's being produced. But it was annoying, bro. I was like, you guys really think I'm going to, like, it's a plastic gavel. I could understand if it was metal or something. Like, it's a plastic gavel. I feel like if there was any other TSA officer, they wouldn't have said anything, dude. Like, I'm just like, because one of you guys gave me, or two of you guys gave me gavels going from California to New York with, remember the big Palantir bell? That was in my carry-on. That was not in it. Like the fact that no one said anything to that big Palantir bell, which actually could be used as a weapon because it is, it's metal. The fact that I didn't say anything about that means the TSA just like, there was just an angry TSA person that day. Oh, the other thing that I forgot about the story, for those that don't know all the details about it, is I told him, hey, the CEO of Robinhood gave me the gavel, Meta right here, 771. And for those that heard the story, you guys remember, the guy at TSA was like, Robinhood? Fuck Robinhood. They screwed me on GameStop. And I was like, damn, I'm never getting this gavel back. I'm never getting this gavel. As soon as he said that, I was like, oh, we're done. Like, I should have told Vlad that part of the story. I forgot. Like, I'm just remembering it right now. As soon as I said it was a Robinhood gavel, you probably was like, yeah, you don't need this shit anymore. So that was what happened in regards to the gavel. It's hilarious, right? Like, you would think I'm making it up. You would think I'm making it up, but like, I can't make this up. They took the gavel because they thought I was going to do something bad on the plane. And then the dude got screwed by Robinhood. So he had zero sympathy for me saying it's a Robinhood gavel. Absolutely crazy, dude. Absolutely crazy. For Miami, I'm bringing a suitcase. I'm not just bringing a carry-on, so that I can put everything in the actual suitcase. But that trip, it was like a 3-day trip, so I just brought a carry-on. I didn't think I need a whole suitcase, and ended up happening that way. Hims right there, 6484, UNH 240, Ives 65, Wayfair 72, that's up 10%, and then Materials Corporation, that's up 1.4. Again, they got strategic investments by the DoD and Apple last month, so that stock is up about 30% since then. Google right there, 193.21. They thought you were going to hijack the plane with the plastic gavel. Yeah, dude. It's ridiculous. Absolutely crazy. By the way, Vlad is not Triple V. I know you guys think he's Triple V, but he's not Triple V. Triple V is a real person. Triple V is in Miami. Maybe he comes through to the meetup. I don't know. Even though last time he sent a donation or a super chat was from freaking Kenya. So I don't even know if he's in Miami right now. But he might be at the meetup in Miami. Dude, the gavel was not big at all. It was like just like a plastic gavel. It wasn't anything serious. So it was a simple gavel. But still, they they felt there was something weird there. Derek should be coming to the meetup. Again, Derek is very busy. He's traveling like crazy. He said he would be able to make the meetup, so I think he will be, but you never know. I mean, with a startup, you're constantly traveling, doing stuff. So if he's able to make it, it would be awesome, but it'll probably be a decision for him closer to the date to see if he can come through. But you guys will love meeting him. You guys will absolutely love me. I mean, he's just like, his personality is so extroverted. He will talk to anyone about anything. And so I think you guys would love meeting him. Here's the update on ChatGPT. Again, we saw 710 million users last week, and it looks like that's what got ChatGPT to raise $8.3 billion at a $300 billion valuation on Friday.
AI's ChatGPT is set to hit 700 million weekly active users this week. That is up from 500 million in March, marking more than fourfold year-over-year growth. Now, that figure spans all ChatGPT products from Free and Plus Pro to Enterprise and Team, and it comes as daily user messages now top 3 billion. Now, business adoption is also surging, with 5 million paying business users, up from 3 million just months ago. And this milestone follows OpenAI securing $8.3 billion from top venture investors as part of its SoftBank-led $40 billion fundraising round. Now, that fresh capital pushes annual recurring revenue to $13 billion. It's tracking to surpass $20 billion by year-end. Now, for comparison, rival Anthropic is reportedly generating around $4 billion in ARR as it seeks up to $5 billion in new funding and a $170 billion valuation. Guys?
Wild. We are living in one of the greatest markets ever in regards to the opportunity of growth that exists. Robinhood above 104, Palantir 158, and we all have a chance to invest in it. It's pretty incredible. S&P still up 1% on the day, and then NVIDIA right here, 177.78. All of those users using Anthropic, Gemini, GPT, it comes back to NVIDIA. And that's why NVIDIA continues to maintain the premium that it has as well. All right, folks, I think that is it. I will be back at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and we will get ready for Palantir earnings. It will be a very, very important day. We're going to see what numbers they put up. I believe Arnie, Amir, and Matt should be joining me, and we will analyze it as we do from 3:30 to 4, and then 4:05 we'll get the numbers. And then after that, we're going to see how the street ultimately reacts to Palantir earnings. Word of the day: proprioception. Proprioception.
Proprioception.
Proprioception. I've never heard of this word. Awareness of the position of one's body. Gymnasts need exceptional how do you say this shit?
Proprioception.
Proprioception to flip and land precisely. Many martial artists practice with their eyes closed to sharpen their proprioception. Okay, cool. There you go. That is the word of the day, and it is the awareness of the position of one's body. All right, folks, I'll be back 3:30 p.m. Big day. Get ready. We'll be live for about 3-4 hours. We'll see what Palantir can put up, and it'll be another moment in the trajectory of what has been one of the most exciting stories on Wall Street that retail uniquely has been able to participate in. And hopefully we get a quarter that only continues that journey as it goes forward. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll be back at 3:30 p.m. Eastern later today. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.